Chapter 50-53. After saying that, Jianji immediately knelt down in front of the statue of Huda Great God, kowtowed and said, "Boy understands Huda Great God's will. Boy will now bestow the divine ability to the descendants of Great God to cultivate. When the new shaman king returns, he will lead us back to glory." Seeing this, Xiaohua also knelt down and said, "Junior Xiaohua, reporting to Huda Great God." Junior was lucky enough to escape from the Buddhist formation. "Now, I want to report to Huda Great God that the new shaman King Ming has entered the cycle of reincarnation. I hope Great God can grant him a safe reincarnation and be born in Yilan continent. When he returns to Mount Meng in the future, he will lead millions of soul cultivators back to glory." Shaman King Ming? Jianji and others were even more delighted when they heard this. They all knelt down in front of Huda Great God, kowtowing and praying. It was also strange. As they prayed, although the statue on one side of Huda Great God didn't emit a dark green luster, strands of thread-like life force slowly filled it. The exuberant life force began to spread in the shrine of the god of the netherworld. Ha ha ha. Jianji and others laughed, their previous worries were swept away. Xiaohua stood up with everyone and said, "There is a saying in Xiaoyu continent that a jade can't be made into a treasure if it's not cut, and a man can't be made into a talent if he's not sharpened." Although there were many twists and turns in the birth of Shaman King Ming, it was precisely this sharpening that allowed him to become a far-sighted leader. Yes, yes. The group of elders nodded in agreement again. But after agreeing, Nuabu asked, "Reverend, I haven't seen the Shaman King recently, but I really don't understand. Why must the new shaman king be born in Yilan continent? Can't Xiaoyu continent do the same?" Xiaohua didn't know if he should tell them about the Buddhist formation, but if he didn't, he couldn't explain why Ziming didn't return from Shaman King's stronghold. So, he thought for a while and asked Nuabu, "Have you seen the Shaman King?" "Of course." Nuabu felt strange. She looked at the other elders and said, "I've seen all of them. What does the Shaman King look like?" Although Xiaohua didn't know what the Shaman King's soul looked like, he still asked. "What do you mean, Reverend?" Jianji was confused and asked, "Could it be that the Magus kings you met were different from ordinary human beings?" "That's right." Xiaohua nodded. With a flick of his finger, the image of the Shaman King with a human face and a dragon tail appeared. "Nameless God?" Jianji and the other elder Wu cried out involuntarily, "Why does the Shaman King look like the 13th nameless great god? This is the true face of the Shaman King." Xiaohua indifferently said, "What you all saw was merely his soul body. Or perhaps it's called a soul shadow." When he spoke up to hear, Xiaohua paused for a moment before continuing. "Of course, all of you can also say that what all of you saw was the Shaman King's true body, and what I saw was merely the Shaman King's shaman body. Then where did Taoist Xiao meet the Shaman King?" Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold had already calculated, and now he asked, "Could it be that it's not the Witch King's stronghold of the Witch God Ridge?" "That's right, it's not the Shaman King village of the Shaman God Ridge." Xiaohua nodded and said, "It's in a sealed space." "Suppressed space? How is that possible?" Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold cried out in shock again, "You're saying that the Shaman Kings of our Meng Mountain were actually suppressed? It doesn't matter if you believe it or not." Xiaohua knew that the elder Wu might not be able to accept it, so he indifferently said, "That's the truth, I saw it with my own eyes." Then Ziming. Jianji realized that something was wrong and hastily asked, "Ziming is also in that sealed space. Before the new Shaman King returns, I'm afraid she won't be able to escape." Xiaohua nodded and said, "Then how did Taoist Xiao escape?" Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold asked. Xiaohua took a deep look at Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold and answered, "Because the sealed space is suppressing someone related to the replacement of the old Shaman King, and I'm not." "Taoist Xiao isn't?" Ji Feng of the Rushu stronghold was startled. "I'm talking about someone related to the replacement of the old Shaman King." Xiaohua felt helpless, so he explained word by word, I have nothing to do with the replacement of the old shaman king. I see. Xiao Hua's denial actually meant another kind of acknowledgement, and all the Elder Wu suddenly understood. Taoist. Jianji of the Gonggang stronghold begged, can you tell us a little bit about the sealed space? We really didn't expect that the shaman king had been sealed and suppressed all this time. Xiao Hua nodded. On the way here, he had already thought it through clearly. Other than concealing the fact that the sealing array was a Buddhist array, he had also explained the majority of the matters regarding the sealing array, as well as the reason why the shaman king had chosen to let Shaman Wang Ming descend to the Yilan continent. After Xiao Hua finished speaking, the entire hooded great gods worshipping temple fell into complete silence. No one was willing to speak. The Elder Wu of the 12 shaman strongholds had always thought highly of themselves. They felt that they were tens of thousands of times better than the Dao cultivators and sword cultivators of the Dawn Rain continent. But only now did they understand the sadness behind the glory. The shaman king, whom they regarded as a god, their leader, was actually sealed by a formation since he was born. For the sake of the inheritance of soul cultivators, the generations of shaman kings had always endured humiliation to survive, and had never leaked any information about this. When these shaman kings were living freely in the millions of Meng mountains, the shaman kings had to face the endless darkness. Shaman King. Jianji of the Gonggang stronghold prostrated himself on the ground and cried out with his head buried in the ground, I was wrong. I shouldn't have forced you. Now, I finally understand your difficulties. It's all my fault. I deserve to die. I deserve to die. Jianji of the Gonggang stronghold didn't tell them what his mistake was, but judging from his remorseful expression, he had a deep understanding of his mistake. With Gonggang stronghold in such a state, how could the other Elder Wu still remain standing? They all kneeled down in shame, including Jianji. Apart from kowtowing, the rest was the remorse in their hearts. But too bad, the tears would always come later. They could only wash away the dust on their faces, but could never wash away the remorse in their hearts. After a full hour, Xiao Hua finally opened his mouth and said, everyone, please rise. The past is the past, and the present is happening now. Only the future is something we can change. Put away the remorse in your hearts, let the tears flow into your mouths, let yourself taste this bitterness, and turn this bitterness into a preparation for the Shaman King. The Shaman King said it well, bright, the sun and the moon are above, the light of the world is shining brightly. Wherever the bright returns, the millions of Meng mountains will shine brightly. You all need to do your job well, lead your mega stronghold and your subordinates well, and cultivate well with the gift of the 12 gods. In the future, the millions of Meng mountains will no longer be the same as today, and the soul cultivators will bring glory to the entire 4 continents. Thank you for your advice, Shaman Father. At this moment, all the elders had risen to their feet, and Jianji took the opportunity to bow and say, if not for Shaman Father's message, we would still be in the dark. Shaman Father? Xiao Hua was taken aback, then waved his hand and said, that's the honorific title of the Shaman King, and I don't deserve it. I think it's better to call you Reverend Xiao. Actually. Jianji looked around and said in a low voice, Reverend, we soul cultivators don't have any ascension. If Reverend is still worried, you can give up your cultivation base of Dao League and just be the Shaman Father of soul cultivators. Huh? Xiao Hua was shocked. He stared at Jianji and said in disbelief, you, all the soul cultivators, can't ascend? Jianji shrugged and answered with a helpless and bitter expression, of course, if you don't believe me, Reverend, you can ask the other elders. I've never heard of any shaman ascending from millions of Meng mountains, and there's no record of this in the shaman book of Huda's stronghold. Damn it. Xiao Hua cursed in a low voice, I should have asked the Shaman King about this. Then, Xiao Hua looked at the other elders. Sure enough, all the other elders shook their heads and said there was no record of this. Fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua was surprised, but he quickly asked Taoist Wu in his mind, is there any record of this in the inheritance of soul cultivators in the 3 continents? What do you think? Daoist Wu was also surprised, and answered, "Fellow Daoist, there's no record of ascension in the inheritance of soul cultivators, but there's a saying that soul cultivators will return to the embrace of the gods. Returning to the hooded great god means entering the netherworld, but what about returning to the other gods? It doesn't necessarily mean that they will die. Besides, I also have the feeling of ascension, just like all of you. But to be specific, I's situation is similar to that of old man Gu Qiong. I only have the feeling, but I can't find the door of ascension, so I don't know where to go." "I understand." Xiao Hua frowned and answered, "There are 3 possibilities. First, the ascension of soul cultivators is different from that of Taoists. They don't necessarily leave the Dawn Rain continent with their physical bodies. Second, the cultivation base of the millions of shamans in Meng Mountains is too weak. Because of the loss of their inheritance, none of them can ascend, so there's no record of this. Third, the existence of the Buddhist formation on Mount Meru has blocked the ascension passage of soul cultivators, so soul cultivators can't ascend. But Daoist Wu was a little worried. "Fellow Daoist, you're about to ascend. What should I do?" "That's troublesome." Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, "It'll be good if you can ascend. But if you can't, do you have to stay on the Dawn Rain continent? Or do you have to enter the space and follow I to the immortal world?" "I have 2 plans." Daoist Wu made a decision. "It'll be best if I can ascend. If I can't, I'll either stay on the Wuming Mountains or stay with the Fortune Gate's disciples. If that's the case, why don't you be my father?" Xiao Hua was moved and said, "My descendants will also be your descendants." "Good." Daoist Wu nodded in agreement. Xiao Hua reached an agreement with Daoist Wu and said to Jianji, "To tell you the truth, the Shaman King had the intention of making I the Shaman King when he passed away. He also misunderstood that I was the new Shaman King. But he was wrong, and I didn't agree to be the Shaman King. There's one more thing. When I returned from the other side of the Wuming Mountains, I met a shaman who was even more powerful than I. This shaman was called Daoist Wu. Daoist Wu followed I to the Wuming Mountains, but he couldn't show himself in the space seal. So, I didn't dare to reveal his whereabouts. When he left the space seal, he said that he was going to find the origin of the 12 great gods, so he left first. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, tip it, and... Chapter 50-54. Having said that, Xiao Hua suddenly raised his head and looked at a spot outside the Bone Palace. He smiled and said, "All right, he is here. Just wait and see. I think he is more suitable to be the Witch Father than I. Everyone, follow me to welcome Daoist Witch." "What? There is a witch who is more powerful than Daoist?" Jianji was stunned. When he heard Xiao Hua say that the witch had arrived, he was even more surprised. Ruobu, Ji Xiu, and the other Grand Magi could not follow Xiao Hua's train of thought. They stood there in a daze. "Let's go." Xiao Hua took a few steps forward, then turned his head and said unhappily, "This Daoist witch is an expert from Wuming Mountain Range. It seems like he has the same origin as all the soul cultivators in Meng Mountains. If he is willing to help, you will no longer have to worry about being a witch king." Jianji smiled wryly and said, "Daoist, we know your background and trust you, but the others? Hee, it doesn't matter. Just follow me to meet this fellow Daoist." Xiao Hua smiled and said, he might not agree to help anyway. "All right." Jianji and the others nodded helplessly and followed Xiao Hua out of the Bone Palace. In the entire Meng Mountains, aside from the clear sky within 10,000 miles of Huda's stronghold, everywhere else was still covered by dark clouds, and no sunlight could be seen. The dark clouds that covered the entire sky were like huge soul beasts, slowly devouring the sunlight and the clear sky. Roar. Just as Xiao Hua brought all the Grand Magi and stood still outside the palace, they heard a roar that sounded like the roar of a dragon coming from the depths of Meng Mountains. In just a brief moment, the roar had reached the vicinity of Huda's stronghold. Jianji and the others quickly looked over and saw a towering witch divinity stepping on a green cloud, whistling toward them. Perhaps Daoist witch's appearance was not as shocking as Xiao Hua's, but as he was born from the witch divinity, he did not need to use any divine ability. Just by standing in midair, he seemed to have gathered the aura of all the soul cultivators in Meng Mountains into his body. Furthermore, when Daoist witch revealed himself, all the elders of Meng Mountains had their eyes fixed on him. They couldn't see his face clearly under the dark green lightning threads, and the strange-looking crown on his head. Without any hesitation, they all knelt down and cried out, "Millions of people of Meng Mountains greet the witch sovereign." Xiao Hua frowned. He was very puzzled, because he had never heard of the title of Shaman Emperor. Taoist priest Wu's body didn't shrink much when he landed on the ground. He waved his hand and helped all the Taoist elders up. He said with a thunderous voice, "Get up. There's no such thing as a Shaman Emperor in my soul cultivation legacy. It's all because some ordinary people have confused the term soul cultivator with the term of the secular world. Just call me Daoist witch. Junior doesn't dare." When Jianji and the others saw that Taoist witch's aura was even more powerful than Xiao Hua's, they didn't dare to call him Taoist witch. "Greetings, fellow Daoist." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "I wonder if fellow Daoist can find the traces of the 12 great gods." "Sure, fellow Daoist knows." Taoist priest Wu answered casually, "I just started to search. I only found out that my Wuming mountain range is the same as the Million Meng mountain range. Also, it seems like the Million Meng mountain range is more prosperous in soul cultivation. I was delighted, but I encountered the change of my soul cultivator's witch luck. That's why I hurried back. From what I know, the Shaman King that I have never met must have passed away and returned to the embrace of Huda Great God. Sigh, what a pity. If it wasn't for that sealed space, I could still meet the Shaman King here." If Taoist priest Wu said that he had met the Shaman King, or even passed down the Shaman King's message, Jianji and the others might not know. They would definitely be suspicious. On the contrary, Taoist priest Wu said that he had never met the Shaman King and said that he regretted it, which made Jianji and the others even less suspicious. At this point, Taoist priest Wu asked, even though he already knew the answer, "Oh, by the way, where's the new Shaman King? Has he been sent to the Yilan continent like fellow Daoist said?" Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, "I don't know about that. After all, these things were done by the Shaman King after we left. However, fellow Daoist, the old Shaman King has passed away, and the new Shaman King has yet to appear. There's no Shaman King in Million Meng Mountains, and the Shaman elders are not confident. Just now, they wanted to ask I to be the Shaman father. You know, although I know soul cultivation, I am still a Daoist cultivator, and I can't be the Shaman father. I just thought of fellow Daoist, and here you are." "What? Fellow Daoist, you want I to be the Shaman father of the new Shaman King in Million Meng Mountains?" Taoist priest Wu pointed at his nose and said in surprise, "Don't forget that I am the Shaman father of Wuming mountain range." "Yes." Xiao Hua smiled, "Didn't you say it just now? Wuming mountain range and Million Meng mountains share the same origin, and there's no need to distinguish between them. Isn't it the same for you to be the Shaman father of Wuming mountain range and Million Meng mountains?" "Fellow Daoist, you are wrong." Taoist priest Wu shook his head and said, "I haven't seen the new Shaman King, and I don't have any blood ties with the new Shaman King. How can I be the Shaman father of the new Shaman King? We humans have the title of Godfather. I wonder if soul cultivators can use it as a reference." Xiao Hua still tried to persuade him. Taoist priest Wu shook his head again, "I came to the Lost Land for 2 reasons. First, I want to find the difference between Million Meng Mountains and Wuming Mountain Range, and find the origin of the 12 great gods. Second, I want to help fellow Daoist Xiao break the immortal formation. There are billions of living beings in the 3 continents, so let's not talk about the Shaman father of Million Meng Mountains." Xiao Hua and Taoist priest Wu were answering their own questions, and they didn't discuss it with Jianji and the others, but Jianji and the others understood. Everyone was like that. If Taoist priest Wu wanted to be the shaman elder, Jianji and the others might not agree, even if Taoist priest Wu had an extraordinary background and was the legendary shaman emperor of Million Meng Mountains. However, Taoist priest Wu didn't agree, and Jianji and the others were a little moved. They looked at each other and talked to each other through telepathy. Jianji stepped forward and said, "Senior, please listen to me." Taoist priest Wu smiled, "You don't have to say much. I was already exhausted in Wuming Mountain Range. Wouldn't it be even more tiring to go to Million Meng Mountains? I still want to comprehend the will of the Great God and return to the Great God's embrace as soon as possible." "That's a good idea, fellow Taoist," Xiao Hua said meaningfully. "However, you're going to be disappointed. The shaman elders have just told me that Million Meng Mountains don't have a passage similar to our Tao sects." "It can't be?" Taoist priest Wu looked worried, and he said in disbelief, "Million Meng Mountains is the birthplace of soul cultivators. How can it be?" "Senior," Jianji hurriedly said, "as far as I know, Million Meng Mountains don't have such records. But whether it exists or not, it depends on the shaman king. The problem is..." Taoist priest Wu shook his head. "The shaman kings of Million Meng Mountains have returned to the great god Huda's embrace, but the new shaman king hasn't returned yet." "So..." Jianji smiled and said, "Senior can wait for the new shaman king to be born in Million Meng Mountains." "Well..." Taoist priest Wu hesitated, and he looked at Wuming Mountain Range. Xiao Hua took the opportunity and said, "Fellow Taoist, you've already arranged everything in Wuming Mountain Range. Moreover, there's a sealed space between Wuming Mountain Range and Million Meng Mountains. It's not realistic for you to return to Wuming Mountain Range. Why don't you stay in Million Meng Mountains for now? We'll talk about it later." Of course, Taoist priest Wu wouldn't agree immediately. He waved his hand and said, "I'll help you break the immortal formation first." "Hee, that's the only way." Xiao Hua saw that he couldn't persuade Taoist priest Wu, so he turned to Jianji and the others and said, "I can't do anything if this fellow Taoist doesn't agree. However, think about it, isn't he more suitable than I? Moreover, he's more realistic." Yes. Jianji hurriedly nodded. "Senior, please think about this. We, the shamans of the 12 shaman villages, also need to discuss this. After all, it's against the ancestral rules to ask a shaman who has no relationship with the new shaman king to be the shaman father. Reverend, what's the immortal formation that senior shaman emperor mentioned?" Jianji of the Rushu village asked in a low voice. "Well..." Xiao Hua hesitated. After all, even the shaman kings didn't know about the immortal formation. How could these shamans know? But in the end, Xiao Hua still had the idea of working together, and told all the grand magi about the immortal formation. In the end, he said, "I've already asked the grand magus, but he doesn't know much about it. I think there is no record of it in the millions of Meng Mountains. Of course, if you have any clues about it, feel free to tell I. After all, there are hundreds of millions of lives in the 3 continents waiting to be saved." The shamans discussed in low voices, but no one spoke. Xiao Hua didn't find it strange. But just as he was about to speak, Jianji of the Rushu village said with embarrassment, "Reverend, senior shaman emperor, this junior usually likes to read shaman books, bones, and other things. What senior said, this junior seems to have some impression. However, it's been too long, and this junior can't remember clearly what it is. When this junior returns to the Rushu village, if I find anything, I'll definitely inform senior." Thank you for your trouble." Xiao Hua smiled and replied. However, he also knew how old the shaman of the Rushu village was. He couldn't even remember what the shaman was, so he didn't dare to place too much hope on him. Since the shaman of the Rushu village had spoken, the other shamans also expressed that they would go back and look carefully. "Fellow Taoist." Taoist priest Wu looked around and asked, "Where's Zai?" "Zai?" Hearing this, Jianji's heart skipped a beat, as if he had an inexplicable premonition. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I just arrived at the Huda village, and I haven't mentioned this to Jianji yet." Fellow Taoist, you must do what you promised Ziming. Taoist priest Wu said. Xiaohua nodded, took out a soul tool from his bosom, and handed it to Jianji. Shaman, this is the nether passage mirror that I damaged in the Huda Palace in the Huda village. I have already repaired it, and now it's returned to you in perfect condition, which can be considered as fulfilling one of I's wishes. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-55. Hee. Seeing Mo Lianxi's appearance, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of his youth before he entered the nascent soul stage. His impression of Mo Lianxi was very good. He raised his hand and said with a smile, Sect Master Mo, please. Mo Lianxi nodded. Her figure was like lightning as she flew towards the end of the rainbow bridge. Xiaohua also urged his figure to follow behind. As they flew closer, Xiaohua could clearly see that on the other side of the rainbow bridge was a huge palace. Not only did it cover the entire mountain, even the 7 mountain ridges were under it. Moreover, this palace was in the shape of a flower. The flower had 7 petals, each corresponding to the 7 mountain ridges. Even the color of the petals corresponded to the mountain ridges. Where Xiaohua's gaze landed, the 7-colored palace had a kind of feeling as if it was about to fly away, like a flower swaying in the wind. As Mo Lianxi landed, in the center of the flower, in front of a huge palace, there were several women in colorful clothes standing gracefully. When these female disciples saw Xiaohua, they immediately bowed and saluted. They called out, Junior greets Taoist Master Xiao, sweat. Seeing the peerless beauty of these female disciples, Xiaohua's heart slightly twitched. He hurriedly waved his hand and helped the girls up. He smiled and said, all of you, rise. Ha! Mo Lianxi laughed loudly and said, Taoist Xiao is indeed a person with a temperament. This little one also hates those complicated formalities. It's really boring. It's better to have a few flower-like girls to accompany you and admire the flowers under the moon. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He waved his hand and said, Sect Master Mo's words are a bit inappropriate, right? Complicated formalities and admiring the flowers under the moon have nothing to do with it. That's what I meant. Mo Lianxi didn't care about the meaning of Xiaohua's words. She pointed at the 2 female disciples and said, you too, serve Taoist Xiao well. Otherwise, I'll hold you responsible. Yes. The 2 women were beautiful, fat and thin. They answered and immediately walked over. They held Xiaohua's arms on both sides. Their softness and warmth immediately stuck to him. The admiration in their eyes didn't seem to be fake. They respectfully said, Spiritual Master, please. Not only did the 2 female disciples have delicate and pretty faces, their temperaments were even more refined, and there was no foxy charm in their eyes. However, Xiaohua had not been close to women for tens of thousands of years. Although his Tao heart was firm, he did not cultivate the virgin cultivation technique. As soon as he came into contact with these fleshy bodies, he immediately felt his heart become somewhat noisy, as if 10,000 small gongs were being struck. Damn it! Xiaohua hurriedly activated his heart technique and cursed inwardly. He knew that he was injured, and it was the Devil Emperor who injured him. His willpower was not enough. Since he knew that he couldn't resist, Xiaohua simply didn't pretend to be an expert. He raised his hand and waved it, Sect Leader Mo, quickly let your 2 female disciples leave. I have been severely injured from the battle with the 2 demon emperors, and I have been suppressing my injuries all this time. Now that I can't resist this kind of temptation, if I do anything inappropriate, I'm afraid it won't be good for either of us. Mo Lianxi's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He naturally knew what happened at the Misty School. He had also hypothesized that Xiaohua would decline with a few excuses, and even assumed that Xiaohua would not decline. However, he didn't expect that Xiaohua, who was in the Tao actualization realm, would actually so frankly admit that he couldn't resist the temptation of women. Mo Lianxi smiled, Spiritual Master Xiao, don't think too much. The female disciples of the fragrance cult are all top-quality cauldrons. At the same time, spiritual master Shao chased away the 2 demon emperors who attacked the Misty School. Not only did you save the Misty School, you also saved the ruins. The female disciples of the fragrance cult are very willing to offer their hearts for spiritual master Zhao's recovery. Spiritual master, don't worry, they are all sincere. Yes, spiritual master Shao. The 2 beautiful disciples beside him said sincerely, Senior has done so much for the ruins. Junior is willing to offer our lives to spiritual master, as long as we can help spiritual master recover as soon as possible. So that's how it is. Xiaohua finally understood. He thought that Mo Lianxi of the fragrance cult was probing and trying to rope him in, but he didn't expect there to be such a layer of true meaning. Since that was the case, Xiaohua couldn't accept it even more. He gently pulled his arm out of the embrace of the 2 female disciples. His movements were so careful and gentle, as if he was afraid of touching fragile porcelain. When the 2 female disciples saw Xiaohua like this, their faces were full of disappointment. However, the luster in their eyes became even brighter, and their arms also loosened. Xiaohua pulled his arm out and cupped his hands. Sect Master Mo, this Xiao understands your intentions. However, if this Zhao's injuries were to spoil the chastity of these 2 female disciples, this Zhao's heart will not be at ease even if this Zhao's strength increases greatly. Chastity? What is chastity? Mo Lianxi was slightly stunned and asked back. Xiaohua sweated profusely. Chastity was the concept of Confucian cultivators. The ruins was a corner of the cultivation world. Although Mo Lianxi was the sect master of the fragrance cult, he probably hadn't heard of chastity before, right? However, since that was the case, Xiaohua also understood that this Misty School in the ruins was definitely not the Misty School he was looking for. After thinking for a while, Xiaohua smiled and said, there's no need to elaborate on what chastity is. Sect Master Mo only needs to know that it's the hardest to bear the grace of a beauty. This Xiao has received the grace of a beauty, and I'm afraid that I won't be able to repay it. Since that's the case, it's better not to touch it. What repayment or no repayment? They were all willing to do this, there's no need for any repayment. Mo Lianxi said disdainfully, if Daoist won't damage his Dao foundation by plucking Yin to replenish Yang, then feel free to try my fragrance cult's secret technique. You have to know, who knows how many disciples of sects in the ruins have come to beg me, willing to tie the knot with the female disciples of my fragrance cult. In an instant, Xiaohua suddenly understood why Yu Mingxin treated him like that. He smiled bitterly, and then said seriously, Sect Master Mo. People with different paths cannot make plans together. This old man didn't come for this matter. Hee, good, good. Mo Lianxi smiled and pushed the female disciple in her arms out, and said, people often say that guests should follow the host's wishes. Today, I can only follow the host's wishes. Very good. Xiaohua clapped and said with a smile, Sect Master Mo, please find a secluded hall. I have something important to discuss with Sect Master. Hee, don't be anxious, Daoist Xiao. Mo Lianxi's eyes narrowed slightly again, and said with a smile, I have already sent disciples to find Yu Mingxin. Taking advantage of this time, I will introduce a few elders of my sect to Daoist. I also have something important to discuss with Daoist. Xiaohua's eyelids twitched, and he said somewhat helplessly, Sect Master Mo, when this Xiao came to spread the fragrance cult, I already saw Yang Haoya who was with Yu Mingxin. If this Xiao came for my own personal matters, why would I come to spread the fragrance cult? Wouldn't it be better to directly find Yu Mingxin? Sect Master Mo, if this is the case, wouldn't this Xiao be in trouble again? So Daoist Xiao didn't come for the important matter of Yu Mingxin. Mo Lianxi answered in a daze. However, this daze was clearly not one of sudden enlightenment. Seeing this, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He stared at Mo Lianxi for a few breaths of time before saying word by word, Sect Head Mo, what do you mean by this? Could it be that if I didn't come for Yu Mingxin, I can't come to spread the fragrance cult? Or Sect Master Mo already knew that this Xiao would definitely come to spread the fragrance cult, and you are testing this Xiao? Sigh. A trace of gloominess appeared on Mo Lianxi's face. She nodded slightly, and sighed. This one naturally knew that Daoist Xiao would come, and I knew it when I heard Daoist Zhao's name. This one hopes that I heard wrong, and that Daoist Xiao isn't that person. Unfortunately, Daoist Xiao still came. Although this one doesn't know what Daoist Xiao has brought, this one. At this point, Mo Lianxi stopped, looked at the few female disciples on the left, and waved her hand. You all can leave. Yes, Sect Master. The few female disciples bowed and left. Among them, 2 of them looked at Xiao Hua reluctantly. After the few female disciples left, Mo Lianxi said, Let's go, Daoist Xiao. Let's go to Bright Palace and tell this one, what is the important matter that is enough to make me exterminate the fragrance cult? Ah. Mo Lianxi lifted her foot, but Xiao Hua was shocked. The premonition from before was born again, and he asked in a low voice, Sect Master Mo. You already knew that this Xiao was going to bring you the news of exterminating the fragrance cult? Yes. Mo Lianxi's figure slightly paused, and then she turned to look at Xiao Hua, and answered with certainty, otherwise, why would this one leave such an order to the disciples? How did you know? Xiao Hua followed, still somewhat confused. Mo Lianxi forced a smile. Once Daoist Xiao enters Bright Palace, you will naturally know. When Xiao Hua followed Mo Lianxi into Bright Palace, he saw that it was a huge hall. The 4 walls were painted with pictures of the desolate era. These pictures were different from the ones Xiao Hua had seen before. Aside from giants, mountains, floods, and monsters, there were also many fragments. These fragments seemed to be a whole, and many of the edges were the same. Of course, these fragments were not only scattered within a certain picture, but also scattered between different pictures. Moreover, there were obscure fluctuations emanating from within these fragments. Everywhere Xiao Hua's eyes looked at, the fragments emanated a strange and variegated brilliance, and Xiao Hua was actually able to see stars, regions, continents, and so on and so forth through these lights. Xiao Hua frowned, and then his gaze fell on other parts of the picture. The things on these pictures seemed to be engraved on them. Aside from the fluctuations in the fragments, there was also the ubiquitous aura on the pictures. This aura varied according to the things engraved on them. If all these auras were connected together, it would give off a strange feeling of covering and drowning. After looking at the pictures around Bright Palace, Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the main hall. There were a few brocade chairs there, and now several young cultivators were sitting on them. When they saw Xiao Hua and Mo Lianxi enter, they all stood up to welcome them. When everyone came closer, Mo Lianxi stopped and smiled at Xiao Hua. Daoist Xiao, these are the elders of my aroma sect. I, Chang Min, greet Daoist Xiao. A white-clothed scholar with curved eyebrows smiled and cupped his hands. Then, a green-clothed middle-aged cultivator with a somewhat yellow face cupped his hands. I, Wu Hong, greet Daoist Xiao. The other was a burly man with a big waist and beard. His voice was also loud and clear. He cupped his hands and shouted, I, Bai Jinzhong, greet Daoist Xiao. Fellow Taoists, please rise. Xiao Hua hurriedly raised his hand to help everyone up and said with a smile, Xiao Hua, greet fellow Taoists. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, gift it, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50-56. Just as Black Hound opened its mouth, the soul strands between Xiao Hua's brows turned into 3 big hands and fell into Black Hound's body. However, out of Xiao Hua's expectation, after a while, when the 3 big hands retracted, not a single soul was taken out. Humph. Xiao Hua snorted and opened his illusion breaker Dharma eye. A fist-sized silver light beam spun and fell into Black Hound's mouth. However, even though the silver light was rotating, there was no soul flying out. After half a cup of tea's worth of time, Xiaohua had no choice but to close his illusion breaker eye. Taoist Witch frowned and said, "Fellow cultivator, there must be souls in the soul lamp. I have seen it. Why can't you do it?" Xiaohua thought for a while and replied, "Fellow cultivator, Taoist Witch can see it, I can sense it too. However, these souls are invisible and can't be taken out by eye. It's like the space in the soul lamp is not on the Dawn Rain continent." "Huh, that must be it." Taoist Witch laughed. "The space in the soul lamp should be part of the unholy blood sea. All the souls that are sucked in by the soul lamp have already fallen into the unholy blood sea. However, these souls haven't entered the reincarnation cycle. Instead, they became part of the soul lamp and strengthened its power." Senior Jianji, who had been watching from afar, heard this and his expression changed slightly. Jianji was the elder witch of Huda village. How could he not know about the power of the unholy blood sea? He couldn't help but worry, is it possible? While Jianji was asking, Ji Ming and the other elders also looked hopeful. The unholy blood sea was created by Huda god, and there was also the unholy blood sea under the Huda village's Yellow Spring Palace. However, they knew that the unholy blood sea might be the real unholy blood sea, but it was definitely not the real unholy blood sea in the legends. It was most likely a fragment of the blood sea space. However, since the space in the soul lamp was connected to the unholy blood sea, it had already surpassed the limit of the soul cultivators in Million Meng Mountain. In the records of Million Meng Mountain's Shaman Codex, there was no shaman king who had such a technique. "Ha." Xiaohua smiled and said to Jianji, "Elder Witch, don't worry. As long as Zai's soul is still in the soul lamp, I can take his soul out." Saying this, Xiaohua slightly raised his hand and a clear water bottle appeared in his hand. "This is?" Seeing Xiaohua take out a bottle with a willow branch inside, Jianji was stunned. It was not the spirit treasure he thought it was. Jianji's soul sense naturally landed on the clear water bottle and the willow branch. The clear water bottle had traces of being a Buddhist item, but the willow branch was no different from a normal willow branch. Could it be that Taoist Xiao wants to use this bottle? Jianji's gaze landed on the clear water bottle. However, Xiaohua's actions were out of everyone's expectations. Xiaohua gently extended his right hand and used his thumb and index finger to pick up the willow branch. He looked at Ziye's body and then looked at the soul-losing lamp. Swoosh! A 10-colored multicolored radiance that was invisible to everyone but was exceptionally clear in Xiaohua's eyes rushed out from the willow branch and landed precisely on the soul-falling lamp. Ah! Under Jianji and the hundreds of shamans' astonishment, the three-headed black hound's body suddenly split open. A small rainbow bridge was placed between Ziye's body and the three-headed black hound's stomach. On the rainbow bridge, 10 colors flowed rapidly like rainwater. The green light of the soul-falling lamp appeared dim in the midst of the 10 colors on the rainbow bridge. An indescribable warmth was born from the bottom of everyone's heart. Z. Just as everyone's heart was filled with warmth, they saw a soul standing on top of the rainbow bridge with its eyes closed, along with the 10 colors flowing out. Jianji couldn't help but cry out. This was because he couldn't see the rainbow bridge, nor could he see the 10 colors. He also couldn't see the soul power or magic power of Xiaohua's divine ability. Xiaohua had a smile on his face. He held the Paramitha in one hand and quietly waited for Ziye's soul to pass through the rainbow bridge and enter his body. Then, he gently shook his hand and retrieved the Paramitha. He inserted it back into the clear water bottle and sent it back to his Naiwan palace. The rainbow bridge disappeared and the three-headed black hound's body slowly returned to its original form. When Xiaohua retrieved the soul strands, the soul-falling lamp also returned to its original form. However, the soul-falling lamp's flame was a little dim now. The color wasn't emerald green, it was actually a little mixed. Xiaohua opened his mouth and a few more green seal words appeared. Just as he was about to spit them out, he closed his mouth again and raised his hand to point at the soul-falling lamp. The soul-falling lamp slowly flew to Jianji's eyes. Xiaohua said, I'm sorry, Elder Wu. Your soul-falling lamp is a little damaged. However, you don't seem to have complete control over the soul-falling lamp. Now is a good opportunity. In the bone that I gave you, there's a secret technique to refine soul treasures. You can take this opportunity to refine the soul-falling lamp. Okay. Jianji nodded excitedly and kept the soul-falling lamp. He said, Senior, quickly revive Ziyi. This junior will then refine the soul-falling lamp. This is easy to say, but it's also troublesome. Xiaohua looked at Daoist Wu and cupped his hands. I'll have to trouble you next. It's troublesome for Daoist Xiao, but it's simple for I. As Daoist Wu spoke, he also showed off. He took out the brush and under the urging of his soul power, a strong life force was produced from the tip of the brush. It was really like adding the finishing touch to a dragon and landing on the space between Ziye's eyebrows. In an instant, the entire world fell silent. Even the whistling wind stopped. Pa. The brush touched the space between Ziye's eyebrows. A sound like a sprout breaking out of the ground came from nowhere. It could be the sky, the earth, the space between Ziye's eyebrows, the brush, or even the hope of everyone. Following this sound, swoosh. Thousands of light shadows surged out from Daoist Wu's body and rushed between heaven and earth. Gusts of hurricanes suddenly appeared in the sky. Rumble. At the same time, deep in the ground, there was also a rumbling sound, and the earth shook. Ka ka ka. Several thick lightning bolts also struck out from the void. It was like a punishment flashing above the Huda stronghold. However, after a while, Ziyi still lay there quietly and didn't move at all. Xiaohua frowned slightly. When he looked through the soul bridge again, he saw that the mysterious dark clouds had already produced a faint life force. However, this life force was like a seed that was sprouting. Although the life force was strong, it was still lacking like a spring breeze. I see. A thought flashed through Xiaohua's mind. Then, a trace of confidence appeared on his face. He quietly opened his mouth and the refined Xiantian qi in his middle dantian was slightly activated. Pooh! The life force that had been refined for tens of thousands of years entered Ziye's soul. Pooh-pu. Countless silent sounds rang out from various parts of the mysterious dark clouds. Swoosh swoosh. The solidified dark clouds began to move. Elder sister, dodge. Amidst the rumbling thunder, Ziye's panicked voice came out of his mouth. His arms and legs that had been motionless for hundreds of years suddenly began to move, just like Ziyi, who had blocked Zi Ming's path that day. Unfortunately, Ziyi hadn't moved for hundreds of years. He struggled a few times but didn't get up. However, on his pale face, a pair of eyes that Xiaohua was familiar with opened. Ziye's eyes opened first. A pair of pitch-black eyes flashed before they closed again. Ziyi called out in panic, Elder sister, where are you? Why is it so bright here? Ziyi. Jinji flew to Ziye's side and reached out to hold his hand. He said kindly, don't be afraid. With this old man here, the soul-falling lamp can't hurt you and Zi Ming. Elder Wu, you're back? Ziyi was very familiar with Jinji's voice. He actually panicked a little and said, Elder sister and I just wanted to help you light the soul-falling lamp. This was all my idea. Please don't punish elder sister. Hee, good child, Jinji laughed and said, you and Zi Ming are both good children. Why would this old man blame you? You're tired. Sleep for a while. Okay, Elder Wu. Ziyi said. He was also tired and really fell asleep. Senior. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Jinji hurriedly explained, Ziye's soul left his body for too long. When he came out of the soul-falling lamp, this junior felt that his soul had dissipated a lot. Now that he entered his body, he wasn't used to it. After he recovers, this junior will bring him to thank senior for saving his life. As Jinji explained, the group of elders didn't speak. The Bone Palace was completely silent. This was a real miracle that they had never heard of. They really didn't know how to express the shock and surprise in their hearts. Daoist Shao, Daoist Shao. At this moment, at the foot of the mountain in the distance, a white-haired old woman flew over and shouted loudly, "You're back? You. Can you really revive Ziyi? G-Man?" Xiao Hua recognized this old woman at a glance. Wasn't she G-Man of the Back Earth stronghold? Qinghong. Jinji frowned and scolded in a low voice, "Why are you here? Today is the God-praying ceremony. Even if you are G-Man, you can't barge into the Bone Palace without permission." Elder Wu, the former G-Man of the Back Earth stronghold, begged, "I just want to ask, can Daoist Shao really revive Ziyi?" Jinji thought for a while, raised his hand and pointed at Ziyi. "It's not a matter of whether or not you can. Ziyi has already been revived." Jinji looked at Ziyi's body in disbelief. Seeing Ziyi's nose moving slightly and his eyelashes trembling, he didn't need to get close to know that everything Jinji said was true. She couldn't help but cry. She threw herself in front of Xiao Hua and kowtowed, Daoist Shao, please pity me. Back then, I didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and offended you. I deserve to die, I will die immediately. However, that Ziyan of mine is innocent. Can you save him? P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank all forms of support. Chapter 50-57. Xiao Hua knew clearly about Ziyan's death. Humans possessed by demons had always had incomplete souls, making it difficult for them to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Moreover, Ziyan had died many years ago, and was different from Ziyi. How could Xiao Hua revive Ziyan? Xiao Hua helplessly helped Chu Hong up and said, "G-Man, please get up. It's not that I don't want to help, but Ziyan didn't leave his body behind." Xiao Hua was about to tell the truth, but Jinji hurriedly transmitted his voice to him. Xiao Hua was stunned, and then said with a bitter smile, "He is the hero of Huda village, but I have no other way. Daoist Master Xiao, you will definitely have a way." Chu Hong's body softened, and she was about to kneel down again. Xiao Hua looked at Chu Hong's white hair and her wrinkles, and couldn't help but sigh. He thought to himself, "I remember that I had already given her the rejuvenation pill back then. It has only been a few hundred years, so she shouldn't be this old. I'm afraid that her yearning is like poisonous wine, erasing her youth." Xiao Hua still wanted to say a few more words of consolation, but suddenly, a ray of pure and holy light soared into the sky from the eastern horizon. Then, a tsunami-like aura surged over. It was even more majestic than the rain from before, and instantly drowned everyone. Then, there was no more then. Amidst the light, Angel Zhang Jia flashed 7 wings of light and landed in the sky above Huda village. His cold eyes swept across everyone, and then landed on Daoist Witch. Oh! When Xiao Hua saw Zhang Jia's sudden appearance, he couldn't help but frown. Although Zhang Jia had been cold before, his eyes had been pure. Occasionally, he would even reveal a bit of shyness. But now, Zhang Jiajin's originally pure and holy feathers of light were covered in ink-like rust spots. These rust spots were not very similar to demonic patterns. They looked like ghost heads, but these ghost heads were also different from the ghost heads that Xiao Hua had seen before. Even on the white robe that Zhang Jia was wearing, there were some strange patterns that appeared on it. It looked very horrifying. An aura of absolute decay, depravity, and blasphemy seeped out. Not to mention the eyes, even the nearby void revealed the smell of decay. "Zhang Jia," Xiao Hua asked, "What's wrong with you? Could it be that he's possessed? Where's Higan?" Zhang Jia ignored Xiao Hua as he stared at Priest Witch and asked. Taoist Witch glanced at Zhang Jia and said, Nirvana is not in I's hands. How could it not be in your hands? Zhang Jie's eyes glowed as he looked at Daoist sorcerer. He seemed to be threatening him. I've sensed the aura of the Nirvana realm twice in the Yilan continent. After that, it never appeared again. Now that I've arrived at the Lost Land after going through untold hardships, I've once again sensed the Nirvana realm before I've even left the mountain range. Within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, only you and Xiao Hua have the ability to control the Nirvana realm. Xiao Hua was not a human from the Lost Land, so it is impossible for him to have the Nirvana realm, so the Nirvana realm can only be in your hands. Ha ha ha. Daoist Witch laughed and pointed at Xiao Hua. How do you know that Xiao Hua isn't a human from the Lost Land? To tell you the truth, he is the real Dao sect cultivator from the Lost Land. Damn it, how dare you lie to me? Zhang Jie turned to look at Xiao Hua. His eyes were filled with fanaticism and anger. Xiao Hua was shocked. He hurriedly waved his arm and pushed Chu Hong to Elder Wu Jianji. He shouted, "This is the angel from the Holy Light Realm. She has some grudges with me, but it has nothing to do with you. Guard the soul cultivator inheritance well and wait for the new Witch King to return." As he spoke, Xiao Hua's body swayed and he teleported to the sky. Daoist Witch did not hesitate. He also flew away with lightning surging around him. Where do you think you're going? Zhang Jie was even more furious when he saw the two of them escaping without saying a word. He fanned his light feathers crazily. Within a radius of a few hundred miles, light shadows scurried around like wild wolves. Not only did it disrupt the aura of the space, it also overturned the group of elders. Many of the palaces were even destroyed. While the elders covered their heads and fled, they all released their soul weapons to defend themselves. Fortunately, Zhang Jie was not deeply possessed. His goal was only the Nirvana realm. As he fanned his light feathers, he turned into a light shadow and chased after Xiao Hua and Daoist Witch. In less than 5 minutes, Xiao Hua released his spiritual force to take a look and stopped in mid-air with Daoist Witch again. Zhang Jie followed behind them. When he saw the two of them stop, he didn't say a word. Instead, he hissed and crossed his arms in front of his chest, chanting an indescribable syllable. Shua. A huge cross-shaped light sword emerged from his arms. Then, as Zhang Jie opened his arms, woo! The cross-shaped light sword fell from the sky, enveloping nearly 1,000 li of space around Xiao Hua. Hee hee. Xiao Hua chuckled. It's just a shadow condensed by the power of faith. If we were in the Holy Light Realm, I might not be able to defeat you. But on the Dawn Rain continent, how can you be my opponent? As he spoke, lightning surged around Xiao Hua's body as he displayed his Transcendence golden body. Then, he clenched his left hand into a fist. Without releasing the demonic blade, he swung his arm towards the cross-shaped light sword. Whether it was the light sword or the fist, wherever they went, the void collapsed. The sound of thunder was endless. Boom! With a loud bang, the sky was torn apart, the clouds were torn apart, and the light sword condensed by the power of faith was shattered into pieces. Like the broken heart of glazed glass, they fell bit by bit. Xiao Hua's huge golden body tumbled in midair. The arrogant lightning flames around him were mostly annihilated by the cross-shaped light sword. If Xiao Hua was in such a state, how much better could Zhang Jie be? She was also like a huge swan, tumbling in the wind for a long time without stopping. Daoist Witch only looked on indifferently and did not make a move. When the hurricane, airwaves, and spatial cracks calmed down, Daoist Witch said, Zhang Jie, did you come to the Lost Land for the Nirvana realm? Of course. Zhang Jie's body landed, and a trace of dark red appeared on her face. That red was very bright, like the color of blood. She said angrily, that's my Holy Light Realm's sacred weapon. How can it fall into the hands of others? Even if I become the angel of sin, I must take it back. Hee hee. Xiao Hua stood firmly and his body swayed, landing beside Daoist Witch. The two of them surrounded Zhang Jie and said, since it's in my hands and has the word Shao engraved on it, how can I return it to you? Besides, this willow branch doesn't have the Holy Light Realm's name engraved on it. I didn't steal it, nor did I rob it. I openly exchanged it with 10 mid-grade spirit stones. 10 mid-grade spirit stones? Damn it. Zhang Jia had been in the Yilan continent for a long time and knew the concept of 10 mid-grade spirit stones. Xiao Hua had long forgotten how many spirit stones were used to exchange for this willow branch. He was just casually saying it, but this made Zhang Jia flustered and exasperated. How dare a human blaspheme my Holy Light Realm's magic? You all deserve to die. Zhang Jia. Xiao Hua saw that Zhang Jia was about to attack again and immediately said, I know that you came to this realm to find the Nirvana realm. But this is the Lost Land, also known as the Dawn Rain continent. Just like the Yilan continent, it belongs to the Aparagodania continent of the 4 great continents. You must know that in the 4 great continents, the highest level of Taoism is the tribulation stage. I've already reached the peak of the tribulation stage, the limit of the laws of heaven and earth. You may be stronger than me, but on the Dawn Rain continent, you can't defeat me. Actually, to tell you the truth, even if you defeat me, you can't get the Nirvana realm. So, I advise you to give up on this thought and get rid of your demonic nature first. I see that you haven't fallen too deeply into your demonic nature, and now there's still hope. Sigh. Zhang Jia heard and knew that Xiao Hua's words were very reasonable. He held back the crazy demonic nature in his heart and sighed. Xiao Hua, you're wrong. I came to this realm by chance, and not specifically to find the Nirvana realm. But seeing my Holy Light Realm's sacred weapon left here, how can I not make a move? As for the so-called demonic nature, it actually doesn't exist in us angels. What we've been infected with is sin. An unforgivable sin. I was originally injured, and now that the bitter sea's blood waves have entered my body, this sacred body has been infected with sin. Soon, I will become an angel of sin. Without the Holy Light Realm's holy ointment, I'm afraid there's no way to expel it. But the holy ointment is also rare in the Holy Light Realm. What's the holy ointment? Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but think of the Holy Light Realm's sacred weapon that was suppressed by the demon Venerable's corpse at the heaven sacrificial abyss. That thing clearly had a medicinal smell. The holy ointment is refined with 500 shekels of myrrh, half the amount of cinnamon, 250 shekels of calamus, 500 shekels of cinnamon, and 1 exion of olive oil. When it came to the origin of the holy ointment, Zhang Jia opened his mouth and spoke. However, without waiting for Zhang Jia to finish, Xiao Hua waved his hand and took out the sacred weapon with a medicinal smell. He asked, Zhang Jia, I can't remember even if you say so much. Why don't you take a look and see if this sacred weapon has any effect on you? Holy ointment? Zhang Jia was also dumbfounded. He never thought that there would be a day when his wish would come true. He had just said the 3 words holy ointment, and the holy ointment, which was rare even in the Holy Light Realm, was so easily taken out by Xiao Hua and given to him. It's really the holy ointment. Xiao Hua was also dumbfounded. He shouted, I thought this was a sacred weapon. Zhang Jia was a little hesitant. He didn't know whether he should snatch it or not. Xiao Hua didn't hesitate. He hurriedly handed the container to Zhang Jia and said, This Xiao doesn't know how to use this holy ointment, so I'll give it to you. You can use it yourself. Okay. Zhang Jia took the container and replied, The holy ointment of my Holy Light Realm is very simple to use. As he spoke, Zhang Jia raised the container. A liquid with the fragrance of oil, medicinal smell, and even holy aura gushed out from the container and poured down. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and thank you for all forms of support. Thank you fellow Taoist, Chuan Tong, for your gift. Thank you everyone for your support. Chapter 50-58. As soon as the holy ointment was released, hymns resounded in the area within a radius of 10,000 miles. Holy light shone out from the liquid, and within the holy light, pure balsamine flowers, sparkling olive branches, and plump grapes were all revealed. A feeling of satisfaction and happiness involuntarily rose from the bottom of Xiao Hua's heart. The holy ointment seemed to be colorless, but when it poured down from Angel Zhang Jie's head, it quickly infected Zhang Jie's long hair, forehead, and neck. As it slid down her white robe, it also seeped into her spirit body. Countless blood-colored shadows howled in anguish as they were annihilated by the holy ointment. Countless pitch-black shadows were also expelled from Zhang Jie's body by the holy ointment, turning into black threads that fell into the void. However, when the holy ointment had covered all of Zhang Jie's spiritual body and even dripped down to her ankles, hundreds of tiny black lines were still hiding inside her spiritual body like poisonous snakes, entangling her heart and other organs. Sigh. Zhang Jie lowered her head to look at the black threads in her spirit body. She seemed to be muttering to herself, but also seemed to be explaining to Xiao Hua, wearing a human body is really troublesome. Not only is it tainted with humanity, it is also unknowingly soaked in sin. Humans are born with sin. Since they wear human clothes, they naturally fall into the shackles of sin. Xiao Hua didn't understand and asked curiously, Zhang Jie, my human race's Confucian cultivators have a saying, humans are born with good natures. Similar in nature, different habits. I wonder what you mean by humans are born with evil natures? Moreover, didn't you say that this holy ointment is a good thing to expel sin and heal injuries? Why can't it help you recover? Zhang Jie looked at Xiao Hua, then looked at the utensils above her head and said, humans are born with the appearance of a child, ignorant of the inside and outside, like a blank sheet of paper. But in reality, their nature has already been condensed. This is something that cannot be changed by any environment. Moreover, since they are humans, they naturally become the residents of sin. In this world, there is no body that is free of sin. How can it not be that humans are born with evil natures? Xiao Hua smiled and said, if that is the case, then only the spirit bodies of angels are free of sin, right? Of course. Zhang Jie said without hesitation, only the spirit bodies created by us holy masters are free of sin. Forget it. Xiao Hua didn't argue with her and smiled, let's not talk about this anymore. You should hurry up and expel the sin of the human form. But it's a little troublesome. Zhang Jie raised his eyebrows and raised his hands. He made a strange hand gesture and placed it in front of his chest. Then, he began to chant praises. Gradually, the sound of prayers could be heard. Xiao Hua couldn't understand this prayer, but he could feel the sincerity in it. This prayer was low at first, then it became louder. The olive branches, grapes, and other objects that had appeared in the sky previously gradually gave off cold air. Boulders, streams of water, sharp swords, and cross-shaped stars appeared. When the Shitzi stars filled the sky, Zhang Jie's praise turned into a hymn. This hymn was different from the one Xiao Hua had heard before. It was filled with grief, sadness, disappointment, and helplessness. Moreover, the rhythm of the hymn became increasingly low and silent. It was as if the entire world was filled with despair. All of a sudden, all of the cross-shaped stars glowed with blood-red light. Then, the container filled with holy ointment fell again. A stream of bright red liquid flowed out from the container and poured onto Zhang Jie's head. Io. Xiao Hua was shocked when he saw that the color of the stream was actually bright red. He thought that something strange had happened. Just as he was about to raise his hand to stop it, a pure and holy lamb suddenly appeared at the location of the stream and all the Shitzi stars. This lamb looked very peaceful as it laid there. Its eyes were filled with incomparable compassion. What's going on? Xiao Hua was stunned. Looking at the purity and holiness of the lamb, he retracted his hand. Because this holiness was very pure, it had nothing to do with the blood sea. However, just as Xiao Hua retracted his hand, the The lamb let out a mournful cry. It was filled with disappointment. Blood gushed out from its body, and in a short moment, the blood soaked all the Sheetsy stars. Even the holy vessels were filled with the color of blood. The stream turned into blood and flowed down. At the same time, a vast and unparalleled holy power actually rushed out from the trickling blood, and pounced towards Xiaohua with a power that was 10,000 times more ferocious than the power to topple the heavens and overturn the earth. Xiaohua didn't have the slightest ability to resist, and was instantly pushed thousands of kilometers away by this holy power. However, what allowed Xiaohua to feel at ease was that even though this holy energy possessed the ability to obliterate the heavens and the earth, the aura within it revealed benevolence, and when it descended onto Xiaohua's golden body, it was a few times gentler than a cool breeze, and it didn't even shake the golden body in the slightest. Xiaohua suddenly understood. He raised his head again and saw that the area within 10,000 li was filled with love. Although the Sheetsy stars were filled with the color of blood, this color was completely different from the color of the netherworld's blood sea and the sea of bitterness. A kind of clarity, a kind of kindness, a kind of forgiveness, and an incomparable love came from this color of blood. The entire heaven and earth was like this. Zhangjia was filled with the color of blood. Wherever the blood flowed, the black threads that Zhang Jia called sin were swept away. What depravity, what blasphemy, what decay, all turned into nothingness in this blood. Boom! When the blood dripped onto Zhang Jia's feet, a fresh surge of life emerged from Zhang Jia's ankle and rushed against the flow to Zhang Jia's entire body. Ha! An obscure holy language came from Zhang Jia's mouth. Zhang Jia's 7 layers of wings spread open again. Layers of holy flames leaped out from the void like the sun. A huge impatience flower appeared in front of Xiaohua's eyes. This impatience flower bloomed petal by petal. It was incomparably dazzling. Zhang Jia is about to advance. Taoist witch, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. Don't let her leave. She might be needed to break the immortal array. Xiaohua squinted his eyes. He also saw that beside Zhang Jia's light feather, another light feather was born. However, this light feather only had an outline and was not clear. But this light feather rumbled. Rumble. Thunder immediately fell from the sky. The heaven and earth laws of the dawn rain continent fell like a rope, imprisoning all the laws of the dawn rain continent. However, following this thunder, tens of thousands of pure white clouds flowed in the sky. An aura that surpassed the heaven and earth landed on Zhang Jia's body. Zhang Jia. Xiaohua suddenly spoke. What are you cultivating for? Xiaohua. Zhang Jia did not answer Xiaohua's question. Instead, he said indifferently, you gave me the holy ointment, which is a great kindness. Also, I'll be honest with you. In the container you gave me, other than the holy ointment, there's also the holy blood. The holy blood is supreme in my sacred light realm. I don't know how you got the holy blood in the mortal realm, but I'll remember this kindness. However, kindness is kindness. This is a personal matter. I can't abandon the great love of the sacred Lord for such a personal matter. Higan is the crystallization of the sacred Lord's great love. I can't abandon her. So, Xiaohua, I'm sorry. With that, Zhang Jia raised his hand. An arm as pure as crystal flew across thousands of miles and landed in front of Xiaohua. The slender hand grabbed at Xiaohua with a power that surpassed the heaven and earth. Before the slender hand landed, the space around Xiaohua was already imprisoned. Fellow Taoist. Xiaohua did not know whether to laugh or cry. He looked at Taoist witch and said, look, you said you wanted her help. Great, now you're attacking her directly. Even so, do you think we're afraid of her? Taoist witch said disapprovingly. If she doesn't agree, we'll beat her until she agrees. Xiaohua naturally would not allow himself to be captured. His figure flashed and tens of thousands of thunderbolts surged around him, shattering the imprisonment force inch by inch. Xiaohua. Zhang Jie's voice sounded like the sound of heaven. Don't struggle. I only want Higan. I won't hurt you. Higan is much more useful in my hands than in yours. Xiaohua faintly smiled, then he raised his hand and patted his head. Boom. Buddhist light soared into the sky. Wherever the Buddhist light fell, it immediately collided with the holy light of 10,000 li radius. Countless, sizzling sounds came one after another. At the same time, Xiaohua formed a Buddhist seal with his hand and chanted the name of Buddha, Namo Maitreya Buddha. Then, his Buddhist palm gently blocked Zhang Jie's slender hand. Boom. Another rumbling sound rose into the sky. The entire sky of 10,000 li radius was like boiling water. Buddhist sect. Zhang Jie's slender hand was blocked. However, with the power of the holy light, she was not at a disadvantage. Her crystal-like arm only paused for a moment before it reached out with lightning speed. Zhang Jie was shocked. The anger on his face was even more intense. His reborn hand became even stronger. You're a disciple of the Buddhist sect? So what if I'm a disciple of the Buddhist sect? There's even a soul cultivator witch emperor here. Seeing that the situation was not good, Taoist witch slapped the top of his head. The three corpses in thunder also surged again. The supreme witch body turned into a majestic mountain. An imposing manner that was close to the law of heaven and earth forced the holy light to retreat. Angels can pity the world. Sacred Lord can redeem people with love. Why can't the Buddhist sect save the world with compassion? Why can't the Taoist sect protect the people with compassion? Xiaohua laughed loudly. His voice was like thunder. If the angels of the holy light world are as narrow-minded as you, how can the holy light world be the mortal enemy of the Buddhist kingdom? As Xiaohua's voice sounded, the Buddhist light within thousands of miles spread. The golden body of Namo Maitreya Buddha statue slowly appeared. However, because the Dawn Rain continent was the realm where Xiaohua had attained fruition, the golden body of the Buddha statue was its original form. As Xiaohua's phoenix eyes slanted, not only did lightning surge in his eyes, they also surged with an indescribable benevolence. An aura that cherished the world and pitied the people of the world surged out from the Buddha light. This aura was clearly much weaker than the holy aura of the holy light realm, but the benevolence in that aura was not the slightest bit inferior to the great love in the holy aura. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-59. What was special was that the Guanyin Bodhisattva was holding the clear water bottle in her left hand. The green permitha was quietly inserted into the clear water bottle. Under the clear water bottle, there was an inexplicable demonic aura supporting the Buddhist item. Indescribable vitality, indescribable power of death, and indescribable harmony of life and death were perfectly presented in the Guanyin Bodhisattva's left hand. You actually created the Namo Merciful Guanyin? Zhang Jie obviously knew about the Namo Merciful Guanyin. Her eyes flashed with surprise. She couldn't help but cover her mouth with her other hand as if she couldn't believe it. However, Zhang Jie's astonishment didn't stop there. Because when Xiaohua's Nanwu Merciful Guanyin Buddha's golden body appeared, although the Buddha's light was very faint, a strange phenomenon suddenly appeared in the boundless heaven and earth thousands of miles away from the holy light. Billions of tiny hair-like crystal objects flew out from all over the earth. These crystal objects just started to look like hair, but in just a few breaths, the hair turned into a trickle, and in just a moment, the trickle turned into a river, and in another moment, the river turned into a river. Angel Zhang Jie was a saint body condensed from the power of faith. She was very sensitive to the power of faith in the heaven and earth. She saw the tiny strands that filled the heaven and earth and couldn't help but open her mouth and exclaim, "Faith, the stream of faith? How is this possible?" Zhang Jie's spirit body stopped in place, and a sense of crisis rose from the bottom of her heart. She had a premonition that if this vast power of faith rushed over, her spirit body would be drowned by this river of faith, and she would be crushed. She hurriedly withdrew her arm. She didn't have time to defeat Xiao Hua. She wanted to save herself, but she was still too late. Because in just a blink of an eye, the power of faith that had condensed into a river had turned into a vast ocean, setting off endless waves between heaven and earth and surging violently toward the Namo Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Guanyin Bodhisattva put his palms together with a compassionate look on his face. He ignored Zhang Jia and slowly knelt down in the air, chanting the name of Buddha. Namo Merciful Buddha, Guanyin Bodhisattva Mahasattva. Namo Buddha, Namo Wufa, Namo Monk, Namo Merciful Guanyin Bodhisattva. Shi. Garavato, 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 Garavato. God of heaven's net, God of earth's net, people leave the calamity, it is difficult to leave the body, all calamities turn into dust. Namo Maha Prajna Paramitha. Along with the recitation of the Guanyin heart mantra, thousands of Buddhas appeared on the left side of the Guanyin Buddha statue. Namo Maitreya Buddha. The Buddha's name was chanted. Sounds of chanting could be heard. Heavenly flowers fell, fairies danced, and dragons roared in the surroundings. The power of faith was like a boundless ocean. Wherever it passed, the thunderous sound caused by Zhang Jia's advancement and the thousands of pure white clouds in the sky had already been diluted. Only the aura that surpassed the heavens and the earth still protected the terrified Zhang Jia, swaying in the billowing Buddha light like a small boat in the storm. The river of faith that was incomparably powerful in the eyes of others fell on Xiao Hua's side and became tamed again. First, it covered Xiao Hua's Buddha statue, then like a cheerful little wave, it pounced on the Buddha light around Xiao Hua's body. Swish. Behind Xiao Hua's head, where there should be light, a vortex the size of a grain of rice quietly appeared. Although this vortex was small, its suction force was extremely strong. As soon as it was born, it immediately sucked in the stream of faith. Woo-woo. As the stream of faith fell into the vortex, a strange whistling sound began to resound between heaven and earth. The chanting of thousands of Buddhas slowly spread, covering the entire sky and the ground. Even the vortex began to expand. In the end, a vortex the size of light behind the head of an ordinary bodhisattva was formed. The endless stream of faith surged into the back of Xiao Hua's head and turned into incomparably pure crystal threads that fell into the crystal-like divinity the size of a soybean. Zhang Jia used the power of the holy light to struggle bitterly in the ocean of faith. Although the power of the holy blood was incomparably powerful, there were signs of it collapsing in the ocean of faith. Zhang Jia chanted the hymn without any panic in his heart. He was just watching the rare miracle in front of him as if he was watching a fire. Let this poor Taoist lend you a hand. Taoist witch's figure appeared from the ocean of faith. As he spoke, a green seal text appeared between his eyebrows. Layers of 3 corpses in lightning turned into streams of light and crashed down, separating Zhang Jia's holy light and Xiao Hua's Buddha light. Even the 3 corpses in lightning protected Zhang Jia. Seeing the lightning fall, the heavy pressure from before suddenly reduced by more than half. Zhang Jia's face revealed a smile as he looked at Taoist witch and said, "Thank you." Taoist witch looked at Zhang Jia's calmness and said curiously, "You're actually not afraid? If Taoist Xiao wants to deal with you, he doesn't need to use any magical powers. He only needs to use the river of faith to completely eliminate you. After all, you're just a spiritual body condensed from the power of faith. The river of faith of the Buddhist sect is your natural nemesis. What's there to be afraid of?" Zhang Jia smiled. Destruction is the beginning of rebirth. It's a step that every angel has to go through. We angels are born for love. We are born as slaves of the Holy Lord. We are born to fight for the Holy Lord. When we die, we turn into faith and return to the hands of the Holy Lord. I'm afraid of falling into sin, not being destroyed. I understand. Taoist witch nodded. No wonder the Holy Light Realm can be compared to the Buddhist kingdom. The path of faith is indeed powerful. Xiao Hua's Buddha fruit is very strange. Seeing that Taoist witch was protecting him without any intention of harming him, Zhang Jie didn't put up any defenses against Taoist witch. He looked at the whirlpool behind Xiao Hua's head and said curiously, why doesn't he have a Buddha source? Isn't it said that every Buddha who achieves Buddha fruit has a Buddha source behind their head? Without a Buddha source, how can he be taken to the heavenly gate? Taoist witch didn't know what a Buddha source was, but after hearing Zhang Jie's words, he already knew that it was the commonly known light. He smiled and said, if Taoist Xiao has a Buddha source, wouldn't he be taken to the Buddhist kingdom? Yeah, he achieved the hardest Buddha fruit to achieve, Namo Great Compassion Bodhisattva Buddha fruit. Naturally, he would go to the Buddhist kingdom. Zhang Jie said curiously, if not, why did he achieve the Buddha fruit of Bodhisattva Buddha? Buddha fruit is formed by nature. It's done with the intention and obtained without the intention. Taoist witch answered in a low voice, as long as he has a merciful heart, he doesn't care about the Buddhist kingdom or the demon alliance. Ah. Zhang Jie was stunned and blurted out, yeah, I know. Xiao Hua is a Taoist cultivator. Why did he go to the Buddhist kingdom? Until now, Zhang Jie suddenly realized that Xiao Hua was a Taoist cultivator. Even if he had a Buddha fruit, he didn't have light or Buddha source. He couldn't go to the Buddhist kingdom. Zhang Jie wasn't someone who didn't know how to be flexible. Seeing such a situation, he rolled his eyes and made up his mind. A smile appeared on his face. Xiao Hua had indeed left a lot of virtue in Dawn Rain Continent. It took no less than 10 days for the stream of faith to rush in majestically like this. Seeing the morning sun rise from the east once again, the Buddhist radiance in the entire sky gradually dimmed. The Buddha light was extinguished. The heavenly lady and the heavenly dragon also left. The heavenly flowers turned into auspicious flowers and fell around the millions of Meng mountains. The clear sound of the wooden fish and the chanting of sutras dissipated. Xiao Hua's huge golden Buddha statue fell and shrunk along with the decline of the magnificent scene. Behind Xiao Hua's head, the soybean-sized crystal-like godhead had now become even bigger. It looked like the nuts of an ordinary mountain village. At the edge of the godhead, hundreds of millions of thin threads stretched out and disappeared into the void. At the other end of every thin thread was an incomparably devout heart. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Xiao Hua chanted the name of Buddha and withdrew his Buddha statue. He returned to his original appearance as a Taoist cultivator. Then, Xiao Hua looked at Zhang Jie and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I've destroyed your path back to the sacred light realm. Not only did Xiao Hua not blame him for stealing the Higan, but he even apologized first. Angel Zhang Jie was upset. He looked at the Higan in Xiao Hua's hand and whispered, praise the sacred Lord. It's not your fault. It's all my fault. Then how are you going to return to the sacred light realm? Xiao Hua asked again. Don't worry, sacred Lord. Zhang Jie smiled, although my injuries haven't healed, my strength has already surpassed the laws of heaven and earth in the lost land. After a few more years of recuperation, I only need to reveal the hidden sacred light. The path of light to the sacred light realm will definitely appear again. That's good. Xiao Hua grinned and said, if because of this Xiao, an angel was implicated and fell to the mortal world, then this Xiao's sin would be huge. Sigh. Zhang Jie didn't answer Xiao Hua's question. Instead, he sighed, I finally understand why you can prove the most difficult Namo Maitreya Buddha fruit in the Buddhist kingdom. Not to mention other things, with the heart to judge others by your own standards and the heart to easily forget the bad intentions of others, you'll definitely be the Guanyin Bodhisattva. It may seem difficult to others, but to me, it's extremely easy. Xiao Hua replied, because this is my nature, I don't need to cultivate or pursue 10,000 laws following the heart. Following the heart? Zhang Jie pondered, this seems to be the principle of the devil sect, right? All Daos are laws. Xiao Hua waved his hand, not to mention the devil's sect, Taoism, Buddhism, and so on. Perhaps in the end, they're all laws. Xiao Hua's words were naturally spoken from the bottom of his heart. He had stolen the good fortune of heaven and earth in the Xingyue palace and listened to the discussion of Dharma. He might not be able to speak of the secrets of Dharma, but a few words were enough for Zhang Jie to swallow. Zhang Jie's spiritual body trembled, and he asked curiously, all Daos are laws? Shouldn't it be that all Daos are laws? That law is a spell, a divine ability. In Xiao Hua's eyes, there was no difference between the sacred light realm and the Buddhist kingdom. He answered very naturally, this law is the law, the origin. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 50-60. Even Zhang Jie, who had begun to evolve into a two-winged angel, could only vaguely answer, perhaps. Xiao Hua wanted to say more to Zhang Jie, hoping that she could comprehend and perhaps gain something. However, when he saw that Zhang Jie's strength was not inferior to his and that he had the Higan in his hand, he tactfully shut his mouth. Then, Xiao Hua looked at Taoist Witch and turned to Zhang Jie. Zhang Jie, I can't give you the Higan, okay, I know. Zhang Jie was straightforward. Before Xiao Hua could finish, he immediately nodded and said, take it. Huh? Xiao Hua was shocked and looked at Taoist Witch. Taoist Witch shrugged, indicating that he knew nothing. That's strange. Xiao Hua said in disbelief, you were trying to snatch it just now. Why are you giving up now? My strength hasn't increased either. Why don't you guess? Zhang Jie saw that Xiao Hua was actually the Guanyin Bodhisattva of the Buddhist kingdom and let his guard down completely. Xiao Hua thought for a while and understood. He nodded and said, I know. Although I'm a Taoist cultivator, I have another identity as the Guanyin Bodhisattva of the Buddhist sect. If the Buddhist kingdom's Bodhisattva sees the Higan in my hand, they might not snatch it away. Because I'm a Taoist cultivator, I'll go to the immortal world after I ascend. The Higan will also be in the immortal world and won't fall into the hands of the Buddhist kingdom. Your holy light world can rest assured. Therefore, the Higan in my hand is the most suitable. Your holy light world won't snatch it away and neither will the Buddhist kingdom. You're right. Zhang Jie nodded. But there are still 2 reasons missing? There are 2 reasons? Tell me. Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked. First, in this lost land, my strength is inferior to yours, so I can't snatch it away. Furthermore, if it were an ordinary cultivator, even if they hid the Paramitha in their body or in their storage pouch, I would still be able to sense its aura. However, the Paramitha is in your hands. I can't sense its location at all. Even if I subdue you, I won't be able to find it. If that's the case, how am I supposed to snatch it? Zhang Jie answered, secondly, Namo Great Merciful Guanyin is famous in the Buddhist kingdom and the Holy Light realm. He is also a bodhisattva respected by the angels in the Holy Light realm. With the Nirvana realm in the hands of Guanyin Bodhisattva, we can rest assured. You will only use the Paramitha to save the people, but you will not use it to kill the angels of the Holy Light realm. Speaking of which, I thought of a third reason. Facing such a pure spiritual body, Xiao Hua didn't have any other thoughts. He only asked curiously, what other reason is there? Because you have Higan. You can kill me anytime you want. Zhang Jie actually told Xiao Hua about his shortcomings. I wanted to use my own strength to pass through the Wuming Mountains. Unfortunately, Mount Meru was the center of the 4 continents and contained the power of 3,000 worlds. It changed all the laws of the Lost Land, so I could not find the flaw of the Buddha array. The most despicable thing was that the Buddha array used the nether aura of the immemorial sorcerer tribe to disguise the aura of Mount Meru and the aura of the bitter sea of the Buddhist kingdom into the nether blood sea. Even I could not distinguish it, so after several years of trying, I could only give up. I was ready to go back and think of another way. On my way back, I met Bai Fei, who was injured by a soul beast. I saw that his life was in danger, so I saved him from the soul beast's attack. However, I did not like the human race, let alone the male cultivators of Taoism. So, I casually placed him in a secret place and let him recuperate on his own. I was ready to leave. At that time, Bai Fei knelt down and told me his tragic life. He said that he was a disciple of a hermit who had never left the Wuming Mountains and had never seen the outside world. His master was killed by a soul warrior, but he did not want to take revenge. He wanted me to bring him out of the Wuming Mountains. I heard that he was pitiful and his injuries were serious. If I did not help him, he might not be able to come out of the Wuming Mountains. So, I gave him a pair of light feathers and taught him the method of using them. I told him to practice on his own and let him fly out of the Wuming Mountains. When I flew out of the Wuming Mountains, I met Du Peng again. It seemed like he had been guarding the place. When he saw me flying out, he stood in front of me and said that he had a way to help me pass through the Wuming Mountains. Although I hated the devil race more, I had to compromise for the sake of Higgin. I discussed with him about how to pass through the Wuming Mountains. When I heard that he did not need me to do anything and only needed to help him pass through the Wuming Mountains, I was a little suspicious. Later on, I tried to find other ways and even used some tricks to get some information from the leader of the failed Immortal Alliance. However, after entering and exiting the Wuming Mountains a few times, I finally gave up trying and decided to work with Du Peng. However, I did not expect to see you and Bai Fei among the human cultivators who went to the Lost Land. I was surprised, so I asked him about it. He said that he wanted to cultivate in the Lost Land and did not want to fight with the cultivators of Taoism Alliance. He wanted to find some peace. I did not mind. When you were suppressed by Mount Sumeru, I did not panic. Mount Sumeru was too powerful, so I could not save you. However, I had many ways to deal with the Buddha formation. When I saved Du Peng as promised, I also saw Bai Fei abandoning the girl named Yi Yun. Although I didn't want to save Bai Fei, he had already seen me and called for help. As an angel, I couldn't leave him in the lurch. Besides, since I had saved the devil race, it was not a big deal to save another human. When I got out of the Buddha formation, I immediately left Du Peng and Bai Fei behind because I felt that I could not resist the burden of sin. If I stayed with these disgusting humans and demons, would not be able to resist the urge to kill them. Just as I was desperately searching for the Permitha, you actually waved the Permitha. Am I not here now? Xiao Hua knew that angels would not lie, so he nodded and said, "So, you don't know where Du Peng and Bai Fei are?" "Yes, I don't know. However, the place I flew out of was not far from the edge of Wuming Mountain Range. The two of them should be able to leave Wuming Mountain Range easily." Zhang Jia answered. Daoist Witch suddenly asked, "Zhang Jia, did you put Du Peng and Bai Fei together?" "Of course not." Zhang Jia answered matter-of-factly, "Du Peng is from the devil race and Bai Fei is from the human race. I did not dare to put them together." Sigh, angels are angels. Xiao Hua sighed, "Previously, I did not have a good impression of the Sacred Light Realm, but you gave me a new understanding of the Sacred Light Realm. By the way, Zhang Jia, how did you come to the Yilan continent?" Daoist Witch suddenly asked. This. Zhang Jia was a little hesitant, as if he had something to say. "Hee, you think too much." Xiao Hua hurriedly said, "Daoist Witch only asked how you came to this realm. He did not ask how you were injured." "I see." Zhang Jia thought for a moment and said happily, "I saw a spatial crack suddenly appear in the void, and the laws of heaven and earth inside were weaker than the laws of heaven and earth in the Sacred Light Realm. I was looking for a place to rest, so I casually came in. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and thank you for all forms of support. Thank you to the Chuan Tong and Only Smoking Half a Cigarette of Gold Nanjing for your support. Chapter 50-61. All right. Seeing how relaxed Zhang Jia was, Xiaohua shrugged and smiled. Then do you know why I'm in such a hurry to come to the lost place? Aren't you a Taoist cultivator from the lost place? Since you're of the same origin as Bai Fei, of course you have to return to the lost place. Zhang Jia said without hesitation. Yes and no. Xiaohua stopped smiling and said, I'm in such a hurry to return because I want to save billions of lives. What? Billions of lives? Zhang Jia was also stunned and asked curiously, Xiaohua, do you have such strength? It doesn't matter if I have the strength or not, as long as I have the heart. Xiaohua replied, I don't know what's going on in the Holy Light Realm, but since you're willing to save Bai Fei, I feel that you can't be left out on this journey to save billions of lives. Zhang Jia's tone was a little hesitant. I'm just a servant of the Holy Lord. Can I really save billions of lives? How do you know if you don't try? Taoist Witch smiled. How about you say you can't after Taoist Xiao finishes? All right. Although she was an angel, Zhang Jia wasn't as confident in saving the world as Xiaohua thought, so she just nodded blankly. Xiaohua didn't hide anything from Zhang Jia. He explained the situation of the 3 continents in detail, then looked at Zhang Jia with an expectant expression. So that's how it is. Zhang Jia didn't look particularly shocked, which was very different from the reactions of the Shaman King and Elder Wu. She only nodded, and even said with some hesitation, then, what can I do? Xiaohua was speechless when he heard this. He thought for a while and smiled. Oh right, Zhang Jia, I seem to have asked you a question just now, but you haven't answered it yet. What question? Zhang Jia was stunned. Xiaohua looked at Zhang Jia and asked word by word, why do you cultivate? Why do I cultivate? Zhang Jia seemed to have never thought about this question. She stared blankly at Xiaohua and didn't speak for half a cup of tea's time. Xiaohua wasn't in a hurry and also waited quietly. Finally, Zhang Jia opened her mouth, but she actually asked, Xiaohua, what's the purpose of your cultivation? Ha! Xiaohua laughs. Speaking of the purpose of my cultivation, there are some things that are hard to say. Because my soul was searched, my early memories were shattered. Although I'm slowly recovering them now, they're still incomplete. However, I vaguely remember that my initial goal was to become stronger so that I could protect my family. Xiaohua narrated some of the things in his memory, and even talked about how he came to the 3 continents. He said, this Xiao doesn't dare to say that my cultivation is not for myself, but every time I can rely on my own strength to help others, I will feel happy from the bottom of my heart. Zhang Jia smiled sweetly. Although angels do not have a sense of self, they only have the Holy Lord and believers. However, good and evil can still be differentiated. When you can do good, why not do it? Haha. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, with fellow Taoist, oh, no, you can't be considered a fellow Taoist. In terms of doing good, I can be considered a fellow Taoist. Zhang Jia rarely agreed to be called a fellow Taoist. Good. Taoist sorcerer also rarely praised, fellow Taoist, with this choice, there will definitely be good results in the future. With fellow Taoist support, this Xiao has more confidence in breaking the formation. Xiaohua was overjoyed, but Zhang Jia's words almost caused Xiaohua's jaw to drop. She said, of course, while doing good deeds, I am also willing to destroy the Buddha Kingdom's Buddha formation and the Buddha Kingdom's plans. Xiaohua's figure swayed twice. He was a little scared. If Zhang Jia met the Maitreya Buddha, would the 2 of them fight to the death? Fortunately, after Zhang Jia finished speaking, he frowned and said, however, Xiaohua, my injuries have not healed. I still need to borrow the holy oil and holy blood to repair my spiritual body. I can't help you for the time being. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, there is no hurry now. This Xiao still hasn't found any clues to break the formation. It won't be too late for you to make a move when the formation is broken. That's good. Zhang Jia raised his hand and pointed at the utensil above his head. That utensil rumbled and fell into the upper realm's light feather. The light feather swayed and the utensil and other things disappeared. Zhang Jia spread out his light feather and said, "Then I will leave first. When you are breaking the formation, just call me." "Okay, take care, I won't send you off." Xiao Hua raised his hand. However, just as Xiao Hua raised his hand, he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, "Do you have a communication talisman?" "Ha!" Zhang Jia laughed loudly. The light feather trembled and in a moment, he disappeared into the distant sky. "What is she laughing about?" Xiao Hua looked at Daoist Witch in confusion and said, "She doesn't have a communication talisman. The Xiaoyu continent is so big. Where are we going to find her?" "Do you still need to find her?" Daoist Witch said with a smile, "Just let her find you." Seeing Daoist Witch's gaze fall on his left hand, Xiao Hua touched his nose and blinked his eyes, saying, "That's right. With this Paramitha, Zhang Jia will come whenever he is called. Why do I need to leave a communication talisman?" After saying that, the proud Xiao Hua kept the clear water bottle in his Naiwan palace. "Fellow Daoist, are we still going back to the Huda stronghold?" Daoist Witch looked around and asked. "Don't." When Xiao Hua thought of G-Man's white hair in front of the Huda stronghold, his face was full of worry. "We can't revive Xian. Why should we go back? Seeing G-Man cry for no reason, we are also worried." Daoist Witch sighed, "That's right. Everyone has different opportunities. Even if we put in the same amount of effort, the rewards might not be the same. Ziming sacrificed a lot for Zai, and G-Man also sacrificed a lot for Xian. However, Zai was revived, but Xian can't be revived. Moreover, Xian was possessed by the demons. Even his soul is incomplete. He might not be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. We can't tell this to G-Man, that may be the case, but don't forget." Xiao Hua said solemnly, "Zai sacrificed himself for his sister. It's filial piety. The Huda great god only used I to fulfill Ziming's dream. What about Xian? Even if G-Man cried and went blind, the Huda great god might not care about him." Daoist Witch nodded and said, "We don't know what happened to Xian when he was alive. Perhaps he was too weak, so the demons took advantage of him. We can only think from the positive side." Xiao Hua said with a smile, "But it's already a fact. What's the point of talking about it now? Let's leave the Million Meng Mountains first before we discuss where to go. Aren't we going directly to the heaven, earth, and mortal peaks?" Daoist Witch asked curiously. "Are we going to push down the heaven, earth, and mortal peaks?" Xiao Hua rolled his eyes at Daoist Witch. "Those are the Tai Ching sect's peaks. We don't have any evidence to push them down. What's the difference between that and robbing someone's home?" "Hee, that's true. There are also Tai Ching sect disciples cultivating on the peaks." Daoist Witch replied embarrassedly. Xiao Hua said to Daoist Witch while flying, "Actually, I feel that I'm quite cowardly sometimes. I'm already the supreme being of the human race, but I still have to be cautious when doing things. If it were Zhang Qingxiao, she would definitely rush up and push them down regardless of the consequences. Vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip." Chapter 5062. Hee, I wonder how your second senior brother, Zhang Qingxiao, is doing now. Daoist Witch laughed. "Actually, if you release your divine sense, you might be able to see him. Xiaoyu continent is a lost land. Compared to Yilan continent, hidden immortal continent, and so on, it's still much smaller. Is it necessary to do that?" Xiao Hua asked. "If you want to do it, then do it. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. I'm just saying. If you want to see it, then go ahead. I don't think anyone in Xiaoyu continent can stop you. If you don't want to see it, then don't look. After all, who wouldn't understand the feeling of being close to home? Ha! Xiao Hua clapped and said, I didn't expect the witch emperor to be so interesting. Taoist witch shrugged and laughed, am I interesting? The interesting person is down there. Hearing this, Xiao Hua lowered his head and looked at the ground. A few hundred miles away, there was a huge deep pit that looked like a big eye on the ground. Light smoke was seeping out of the deep pit and slowly drifting in the air like a cloud. Looking from afar, it looked like a watery eye, which was quite strange. Isn't this the drifting cloud lake between Million Mountain and Huan Country? About 1,000 miles away from the drifting cloud lake, a few cultivators were activating their magic treasures to fight. Although a voice sounded far away, when it entered Xiao Hua's ears, it was like a thunder hammer. Where did you come from? Take my whip. Li Zongbao, senior brother Li. Xiao Hua couldn't help but burst into tears. His figure turned into a cloud above the drifting cloud lake and instantly landed on top of everyone's head. It was a place where a few mountain peaks converged. As they were far away from Mount Meng, the unique desolate coldness of the Huan Kingdom had gradually spread throughout the mountain range. Amidst the rising and falling mountain ridges, speckles of ice and snow were like scars on the head of a scab, looking very ugly. On top of a layer of ice that reflected the pale light of the sun, a petite girl in a sword outfit was holding a long sword in her hand. She bent her waist and stood on top of the ice. Looking at the girl's slightly twitching mouth and the blood dripping down her right leg, one could tell that this girl was seriously injured. This female sword cultivator has delicate eyebrows and gentle eyes. Isn't she the Guyu that Xiao Hua encountered in the sword battle earlier? In the midair in front of Guyu, a Taoist cultivator with snow-white hair and a straight back was holding a whip in his hand. His eyes were bright and full of expression as he looked ahead. Who else could it be but senior martial brother Li Zongbao that Xiao Hua was thinking about? Li Zongbao was much older than he was several hundred years ago. It seemed that even the rejuvenation pill couldn't stop him from longing for Kaizhuxia. Guyu. Martial Uncle Qin glanced at Li Zongbao, then at Guyu, and said, You are a famous junior disciple of the Void Heaven Sword School. In just a few hundred years, you have set foot into the third-grade illusory sword school. Your reputation has already spread throughout the major sword schools of the Huan country. However, you can't keep yourself clean. Hanging out with this disciple of the Extreme Happiness School is quite bad for the reputation of the Void Heaven Sword School. Without waiting for Martial Uncle Qin to finish speaking, Guyu's face was filled with shame and anger. He shouted, Martial Uncle Qin, after the sword war in the early years, we sword cultivators occupied the Sky Patrol City. Since then, there was no longer a sword tomb barrier between the Huan country and the three countries. Our sword cultivator disciples can directly enter the three countries. In the past few hundred years, I don't know how many sword cultivator disciples have traveled to the three countries. I also don't know how many Dao cultivator disciples have come to the Huan country for experiential learning. I don't know, Fan, why does the sword master's gaze fall on this junior, a little sword cultivator? This is the sword master's verbal order. I don't know the reason. Martial Uncle Qin faintly replied, just go back with me. I won't make things difficult for Li Zongbao. Moreover, as you can see, it's not me making things difficult for him, it's him making things difficult for me. Alas, okay. Seeing this, Guyu put away his flying sword and turned to Li Zongbao, saying, Zongbao, let me indulge this once. I've been with you for so long, but you've always been so cold to me. I know you still miss Sister Zhuxia, but she has already left. You may not like me, but you need a new life. I hope that after I leave, you can throw away the burden in your heart. After all, the past is the past, and you have a better future. You can't go. Li Zongbao's face was as calm as water. He was not moved by Guyu's tenderness, but he still said calmly. Guyu was overjoyed and hurriedly shouted, Zongbao, so. You can't call me Zongbao. Just call me senior brother. Li Zongbao was still like a stubborn stone and replied, if I don't agree, no one can take anyone away from me. In that case, Li Zongbao. Yi Yu coldly said, then don't blame me for being impolite, haha. Li Zongbao laughed. Yi Yu, how can I not know what you're thinking? You know it's impossible for me to hand Gu Yu over to Void Heaven Sword School, but you still instigated the disciples of Void Heaven Sword School to come here. Isn't your purpose to kill me? Come, why don't you fight with me for 300 rounds? While speaking, Li Zongbao activated the immortal slaughtering whip in his hand, turning it into a huge dragon and pouncing towards Yi Yu. Seeing the dragon-like whip shadows, each of which had the strength of a nascent soul cultivator, Yi Yu was shocked. While controlling his flying sword to resist, he thought to himself, damn it, why does this Li Zongbao's cultivation base become so strong every time I see him? Before, he wasn't my opponent, but now, in just a few hundred years, he has surpassed me. This guy must have found some kind of opportunity in the Meng Mountains. If I can't capture him and interrogate him today, I'm afraid I won't have another chance in the future. Although Yi Yu also had the strength of a first-grade sword transformation realm cultivator, he didn't transform into a sword and was no match for Li Zongbao's spirit treasure. Boom, boom, boom. The whip shadows hit Yi Yu's flying sword and immediately knocked it back. Yi Yu's face turned pale. He flipped his hand again and a bell-like soul tool appeared in his hand. Seeing wisps of black gas seeping out from the gaps of the bell, Li Zongbao knew it was powerful and didn't dare to get too close. He waved his hand again and the immortal slaughtering whip struck towards Martial Uncle Qin of Void Heaven Sword School and Sun Luo of Xianjian Sect. Sun Luo of the Xianjian Sect smiled when he saw the immortal slaughtering whip split into two and fall towards him. Moreover, the whip shadows were much more powerful than ordinary magical treasures. He turned his head and looked at Martial Uncle Qin of Void Heaven Sword School. The two of them exchanged glances and then slapped their heads at the same time. Buzz, buzz. The sound of swords suddenly rang out. Countless sword energies rushed out from their bodies and turned into swords. The two of them were about to turn into swords and attack Li Zongbao together. However, at this moment, the silhouette of Sun Luo from the Xianjian sect trembled as the sword chi around him abruptly dissipated. His silhouette actually broke free from the Xianjian sect, as a look of astonishment appeared on his jade-like face. However, it only lasted for a moment before he took a deep breath. Buzz. Sword energies rose again. Woo, woo. Martial Uncle Qin and Sun Luo flew up almost at the same time. Their huge flying swords gave off a sharp sword intent and rushed towards the immortal slaughtering whip's shadow. Boom. Martial Uncle Qin's flying sword hit the immortal slaughtering whip first. With a powerful roar, Martial Uncle Qin's flying sword was defeated. Martial Uncle Qin's face was filled with shock as he retreated from the sword. However, he was not worried because Sun Luo's flying sword had already hit the other shadow of the immortal slaughtering whip. As for Li Zongbao, because he had used the immortal slaughtering whip, his face was slightly red. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe at Qidian, vote for it, give it a tip, and Chapter 5063. But just when Martial Aunt Qin thought victory was at hand, Sun Luo's flying sword suddenly soared into the sky, dodged the shadow of the kill immortal whip, and then directly stabbed at Yi Yu who was holding the soul weapon. Moreover, a sharp sword sound came from the flying sword. Gu Yu, quickly kill Lu Su. Chong Taishu didn't send out the sword master command at all. Qin Nongshue's target is the spiritual weapon in Li Zongbao's hand. Ah! Gu Yu was stunned. However, she only hesitated for a moment and immediately threw the flying sword from her hand, stabbing at another Illusory Heaven Sword School disciple who was also at the third grade of the Illusory Heaven Sword School. Junior Martial Sister Gu Yu. The Illusory Heaven Sword School disciple with the third stage illusory sword was naturally the Lu Su mentioned by Sun Luo. Seeing Gu Yu's flying sword coming at him, he couldn't help but reveal a lustful expression. He said with a smile, you were injured by martial Uncle Yi, so how can you be my opponent? Didn't you hear what Sun Luo said? Martial Ant Qin's target is Li Zongbao's magic weapon. It has nothing to do with you. Obediently take back your flying sword and return to the sword school with me. I will ask Martial Ant Qin to plead for you. Bah. Seeing the expression in Lu Su's eyes, Guyu immediately understood his intention. She spat. Looking at the weak sword intent of the flying sword, she clenched her teeth and rushed at Lu Su with sword light all over her body. Seeing Guyu's figure also turning into a sword, Lu Su said in surprise, "Damn, you know the secret sword transformation skill?" With that, Lu Su hurriedly stopped looking down on her and waved his hands. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dozens of flying swords appeared out of thin air and stabbed at Guyu, who had turned into a sword. It turned out to be the chain sword technique of the illusory Heaven Sword School. The sword intent gushing out from the dozens of flying swords was like a wave higher than the previous one, drowning Guyu, who had turned into a sword. Boom boom boom. The sound of the sword intent being annihilated constantly came. Lu Su's cultivation was obviously higher than Guyu's. Although Guyu had the power of the sword transformation skill and the sword intent was like a wave being torn apart by Guyu's petite and exquisite figure gradually got out of the sword. Seeing Guyu's figure, Lu Su's eyes flashed with more bestiality. He growled and a suppressed voice came out of his throat, "Guyu, you're not my opponent. Now that you've turned into a sword, you've injured your foundation, why don't, then," the sword, a small golden sword of a few inches in his chest, was forced, a bloody hole of several inches in the hole's heart. And in the hole, a few inches his hand, was forced, a few inches wide bloody sword was a few inches was forced sword. N's sword SSS swords. S sword uses sword several inches. Damn it, how could I forget about yours invisible sword? Lu Su lowered his head and looked at the wound that was bleeding non-stop. He turned his hand and actually wanted to grab the golden sword. But before the sword light in Lu Su's hand fell, the golden sword immediately swam away like a fish and disappeared again in a moment. Since you've come, there's no need to leave. Lu Su roared and opened his mouth. Keng keng. A yellow-colored sword chi spurted out and immediately shrouded the surrounding 10 feet. Sword light overflowed and the golden sword's body was revealed again. Looking at Guyu again, hers was even more staggering. Blood was flowing out from the wound on her leg. Although Lu Su's flying sword was blocked by her, that flying sword was like a venomous snake that was ready to attack again. Li Zongbao was a little stunned. He didn't expect Sun Luo to suddenly attack Night Rain. The immortal slaughtering whip lightened and actually missed. He was a little hesitant, unsure if this was a trap. However, there was no time for Li Zongbao to hesitate. After Qin Nongshue's expression changed drastically, she sneered again. She glanced at Sun Luo and ignored him. Instead, she looked at Li Zongbao and said, "I didn't expect that Li Zongbao, who is said to hate evil, would collude with me, a sword practitioner. I just don't quite understand. Since that's the case, can you still get any benefits?" After saying that, Qin Nongxue transformed into a sword again. The sword intent here was like a snowstorm in a fierce wind, instantly covering the surrounding area. Clusters of sword intent fell towards Li Zongbao with piercing coldness. So what if I'm a demonic cultivator? Li Zongbao stopped hesitating and said coldly, "At least I'm 100 times better than you sanctimonious people." After that, Li Zongbao waved the immortal slaying whip forcefully again. A wave of whip shadows broke Qin Nongshue's sword intent instantly. What a great immortal slaying whip! Qin Nongxue said the name of the spiritual weapon and smiled. It's a pity that it's in your hands. It really taints the power of this spiritual weapon. As she said that, the sword intent reappeared. She had already seen the weakness of Li Zongbao's immortal slaughtering whip. She only urged the sword intent to lure Li Zongbao to use the immortal slaughtering whip. She didn't get too close. However, just as Qin Nongxue finished speaking, there was a soft sound. Amidst the rumbling of the whip shadows and the sword intent, a dragon-like immortal slaughtering whip quietly appeared on Qin Nongxue's back. Although Qin Nongxue had already noticed it and tried her best to dodge, under the power of the spiritual weapon, her left arm was still hit by the immortal slaughtering whip. Ah! Although it was only a soft sound, Qin Nongxue's heart-wrenching scream had already revealed the power of this whip. Qin Nongxue didn't completely get out of the sword. Her body trembled violently. Her left arm was badly mutilated and her bones and flesh were cracked. The sword light that protected Qin Nongxue was annihilated. Qin Nongxue retreated quickly. Li Zongbao sneered and wanted to chase after her. Unfortunately, he just flew a few feet and turned back again. A layer of red rose on his face as if he was drunk. He turned his head to look at Guyu, who was at a disadvantage and was about to wave the immortal slaughtering whip to save her. Clang. Qin Nongxue was faster than Li Zongbao. She retreated quickly and a ferocious smile appeared on her face. She opened her mouth and a natal sword flew out. With the broken sword intent all over the sky, it rushed towards Guyu from another direction. And she didn't care about the serious injury on her left arm. She waved her right hand suddenly and a silver-white sword chi gushed out from her arm. She actually rushed towards Li Zongbao's back. Damn it. Seeing this, Li Zongbao didn't hesitate. He just cursed in his heart and ignored Qin Nongxue's attack. He waved the immortal slaughtering whip and hit the natal sword. He had already let down Guyu's affection. He couldn't let Guyu die in front of him again. His heart was very small and he couldn't bear any more burdens. Sun Luo of the Xianjian sect was the initiator of the sudden change of the situation. When he revealed the real intention of the Void Heaven Sword School, he stabbed his sword towards Yiyu. Yiyu was stunned at first, but then he glanced around and couldn't help laughing. I can't resist Li Zongbao's spiritual weapon, but can't I resist your little sword transformation of the Xianjian sect? Since you have to jump out at this time to court death, don't blame me for not considering your identity as a sword cultivator. Immediately, Yiyu's right hand produced a sword hair and swung it. Boom. Yiyu's sword intent was a bit strange at this time. Countless sword hairs were pale white. Moreover, there was a kind of soul-snatching screech in the roar. Every sword hair seemed to be hiding a ghost. Sun Luo seemed to be extremely confident in Night Rain's mysterious sword intent. His flying sword was originally a flame, and at this moment, he let out a low roar and activated his true essence. Caw caw caw. Hundreds of fire spirits rushed out from the sword intent. These fire spirits took the shape of fire crows, but they were much smaller. The fire spirit's sword intent collided with the fierce ghost sword intent. Zi-la-la. A loud rumbling sound rang out, and the entire space of 100 feet was suffused with an intense churning aura. Clang 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 clang. Yiyu wasn't surprised that Sun Luo was able to block her spectral sword. Activating the bell in her left hand, she began to chime. The area where Sun Luo's spectral sword had been was suddenly filled with a chilling coldness. Strands of dark green light began to appear in the air, and the sword on Sun Luo's upper body began to flicker rapidly as if there was an invisible gale blowing past. Ao ao. Sun Luo roared in a low voice. His face showed that he was in pain, and large beads of sweat dripped down from his forehead. Sun Luo used his sword intent to block the attack of the soul weapon. The fire soul sword intent of the flying sword was unable to block the ghost sword intent. With the help of the soul armament, Night Rain's sword aura was becoming more and more rampant. The ghostly that was hidden within the sword hair was already beginning to reveal itself. Although the ghost heads weren't fully formed yet, they were already beginning to devour the fire soul. Pooh! Sun Luo's figure retreated slightly. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out a jet of black demonic energy. A palm-sized white bone flag flew out. Damn it! You really are a disciple of the devil school. Yi Yu saw the demonic energy and couldn't help but curse in a low voice. However, the more it was like this, the more confused he was. Li Zongbao had clearly exposed Sun Luo's identity, but Sun Luo still wanted to risk his life to help Li Zongbao. There must be a secret that he didn't know. Sun Luo summoned the bone banner, spat a mouthful of blood essence into it, and then waved it. Woo woo. Ghostly winds rose, and countless ghostly shadows rushed out of the bone banner, majestically rushing towards Yi Yu. Of course, Yi Yu didn't dare to be negligent. He activated his flying sword to fight, and at the same time, he shook the bell to kill Sun Luo. For a time, the entire space of more than 100 zhang was filled with ghostly wails and howls. Waves of ghost and demonic energy rushed out disorderly, and the already cold mountain peak became even colder. Sun Luo took out the bone flag just as Qin Nongxue was about to risk everything to kill Li Zongbao. Seeing that Li Zongbao was about to be stabbed by the flying sword, a cold voice in the air said, "Qin Nongxue, you want to kill someone in front of me? You're really tired of living." Following this sound, a dense demonic shadow suddenly surged about 100 feet in front of Qin Nongxue's head. Then, there was the sound of a wooden fish being struck. A bone ball that was several feet in size charged out from the demonic shadow. The bone ball had scriptures that seemed to be completely engraved on it. However, black qi seeped out from these scriptures. When the black qi landed in the air, it let out a whimper and smashed towards Qin Nongxue like a meteor chasing after the moon. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Chapter 50-64. Qin Nongxue was not a fool. Just like Night Rain, when he saw Sun Luo suddenly change sides, he released his divine sense to investigate. Since they were unable to discover anything strange, they had to be cautious and leave some leeway to prepare for any changes. Now that the change happened, Qin Nongxue wasn't surprised. He laughed and said, "Good. This old man wants to see which sect master of the heavenly demon sect you are." As he spoke, he suddenly turned around. Ignoring the injury on his left arm, he once again became one with the sword and turned into a sword light that pierced towards the bone ball. Sword cultivators paid the most attention to sharpness and bravery. Qin Nongxue's body and sword as one gave him a feeling of invincibility. The cold air and snow around him were all absorbed by his sword energy. In the blink of an eye, the flying sword had already pierced through the bone ball. The sharpness of the sword immediately pierced through the bone ball. With a loud bang, the bone ball exploded and countless demons flew out. They looked extremely panicked. Qin Nongxue didn't care about these demons at all. The sword light didn't decrease in momentum and turned into a rainbow that pierced towards the bone ball. However, just as Qin Nongxue rushed through the devil qi, there was a sudden turn. The sword light suddenly rushed towards the mountain peak. Boom! Qin Nongxue's sword light pierced into the void and made a roaring sound. A faint black figure flew out from the roaring sound like a wisp of smoke. A tall and thin young man with delicate features appeared with surprise on his face. This young man was wearing a scholarly robe and was holding a magic treasure that looked like a scroll in his hand. However, the magic treasure was dim and there was an obvious sword mark on it. The young man flew out. He was still shocked and shouted, "You! How did you find my hiding place?" "Ha!" Qin Nongxue looked up to the sky and laughed. He raised his hand and pointed at the young man and said, "Demon brat, don't forget that this old man is a swordsman of the Void Heaven Sword School. My Void Heaven Sword School is famous for the invisible sword. If this old man couldn't see your body hiding in the void, how could I cultivate the invisible sword?" Qin Nongxue laughed and didn't fall for the young man's trick. He turned around again and rushed towards Li Zongbao. Lu Su only had the strength of a third-grade illusory sword. How could he be a match for Li Zongbao? Fortunately, Qin Nongxue was fast enough to save Lu Su from Li Zongbao's immortal slaying whip at the critical moment. When Li Zongbao saw that there was a helping hand, he didn't force her too much. Holding the kill immortal whip, he first protected Gu Yu and looked at the young man with a puzzled face. As for Sun Luo from the Xianjian school, even with his bone banner, he wasn't a match for Night Rain's soul armament. When he saw the young man flying out, he decided to block for a while before hurriedly flying back. Paying respects to Vice Sect Leader Yi. Since Sun Luo had already revealed his identity, there was no need for him to hold back anymore. He flew up to the young man and bowed deeply. "Please rise." The so-called Vice Sect Leader Yi very politely raised his hand and kindly said, "You have the greatest merit in this matter. I will definitely report this to the sect leader." "I don't dare." Sun Luo was obviously confused, but he didn't dare to ask too much. He hurriedly replied, "This is all thanks to Vice Sect Master. If not for Vice Sect Master's timely reminder, I would have made a big mistake." Don't worry, the ignorant are not guilty. Our sect leader is very magnanimous." Vice Sect Leader Yi laughed loudly with the aura of a formidable person. "Vice Sect Leader Yi?" When Yi Yu heard Sun Luo calling this young man Vice Sect Leader Yi, she was first stunned, then whispered to the young man. After all, there weren't many people with the surname Yi in this world. Yi Yu was a little curious about the origin of this young Vice Sect leader. However, when Yi Yu saw the young man's appearance, she couldn't help but be slightly stunned and exclaimed, You. Vice Sect Leader Yi turned to look at Yi Yu with a harmless smile on his face and asked, "Master Yi, it's been a few hundred years. It's rare that you still remember this little one. However, the person you remember shouldn't be this little one, right? It should be this little one's father." Damn it. When Yi Yu heard this, she immediately understood and cursed in a low voice, "I understand now. You're Yi Yin. You live near Tianzhu Peak, clap clap clap." Yi Yin clapped his hands and laughed, "Master Ye's memory is really good. You actually know this little one's name. I'm afraid you didn't remove the roots back then and have been thinking about it all this time." Humph. Yi Yu sneered, "Removing the roots naturally means removing the roots. Moreover, Yi Feng violated the ancestral rules and should be executed. If you have any grievances, you can complain to the elders in the clan. However, look at you. You misinterpreted the ancestral rules and actually abandoned your principles to join the devil sect. You abandoned yourself and became Zhang Qingxiao's lackey. You're really pitiful and sad." When Yi Yin heard this, a rare look of anger appeared on his face. He raised his hand and pointed at Yi Yu, saying, "If we're talking about what happened back then, who knows better than you and me? Don't think that just because I was young back then, I didn't know anything. The evil deeds you've done are too numerous to be recorded. That night, if it wasn't for the fact that I'm of the Yi clan's bloodline and had nothing to do with that matter and secretly let me go, I'm afraid I would have died in your hands long ago." "Who was that person?" Yi Yu smiled. Although he knew that Yi Yin wouldn't say, he still asked. Yi Yin took a deep breath and calmed himself down before continuing, "On that snowy night, I really hated myself for being surnamed Yi. Unfortunately, I was only a weak little doll and had no power to resist at all. If it wasn't for meeting my sect leader, I'm afraid I would have died on Tianzhu Peak. Is my sect leader someone hypocrites like you should know? In this world, there's no one who has the right to judge him. What Zhang Qingxiao is like has nothing to do with me." Yi Yu said disdainfully, "However, since you're using Heavenly Devil Sect's name to seek revenge on me, then don't be afraid of stirring up a rift between the Sword Cultivators and Heavenly Devil Sect." Ha. Yi Yin seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world as he pointed at Yi Yu and laughed until he was convulsing with laughter, saying, "Yi Yu, who do you think you are? If I wanted to kill you, I could have done so 100 years ago. However, because Heavenly Devil Sect is cooperating with the Sword Cultivators, I couldn't ruin Lord Sect Leader's plans, so I let you live until now. Actually, I can kill you as easily as squashing an ant. The sword cultivator's higher-ups definitely wouldn't know that I was the one who did it. Oh. Yi Yu's reaction was also strange. He looked left and right and said, "Since you don't want to kill me, why did you attack me today? Based on your abilities, do you think you can kill me?" Yi Yin shrugged his shoulders, looking extremely similar to Zhang Qingxiao. He said indifferently, "There's no other way. Sins committed by the heavens can be forgiven, but sins committed by men can't be spared. I can suppress my blood vengeance at the bottom of my heart, or I can look at you and pretend that I don't know you. But I dare not disobey my sect leader's orders." At this point, Yi Yin paused and looked at Sun Luo with a smile, saying, "Are you also very curious about my voice transmission earlier?" "Yes, I still don't understand." Sun Luo answered honestly. Yi Yin raised his hand and saluted in a certain direction. Then, he respectfully pointed at Li Zongbao and said, "Because my heavenly demonic sect master had already given a death order several hundred years ago. In this world, there are a few people that no one can touch. Whoever dares to touch them will be Heavenly Devil Sect's mortal enemy. Heavenly Devil Sect will definitely not rest until they are dead. And this senior Li Zongbao before us is one of them." Damn it, damn it, damn it. Yi Yu couldn't help but roar. He was very clear about Heavenly Devil Sect's abilities, but how could he know that this Li Zongbao, who abhorred evil, would have such a deep relationship with Heavenly Devil sect leader? However, after a moment, Yi Yu smiled maliciously and said, "Since that's the case, Yi Yin, don't blame me for being ruthless. If I kill all of you, even if Zhang Qingxiao's minions are all over the world, I'm afraid." Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, Yi Yin raised his hand and took out a small flag. He said indifferently, "Yi Yu, do you recognize this flag?" Yi Yu's expression changed. He gritted his teeth and said, "Vice Sect Leader Yi, I don't recognize your Heavenly Devil Sect's flag. I don't know why you took it out." "Huh." Yi Yin laughed and said, "Since that's the case, I don't mind telling you that this flag is the command flag of Heavenly Devil Sect and Sword Cultivators. Anyone below the 3rd grade of Sword Transformation Realm who sees this flag is the same as seeing the Sword Master of Heavenly Devil Sect. Yi Yu, do you dare to disobey the command of Sword Cultivators?" Unexpectedly, Yi Yu shrugged and said innocently, "Vice Sect Leader Yi, I'm sorry. Although I'm a Sword Cultivator, I'm also the vassal of Mount Meng's Lucy Village. I can disobey the command of Sword Cultivators and Heavenly Devil Sect." "Oh, I see." Yi Yin laughed. He was not surprised by Yi Yu's answer at all. He said, "It's really easy for a traitor to do such a thing. Since you've already abandoned Sword Cultivators and hugged the thighs of Soul Cultivators, there's no need for Sword Cultivators to take you seriously." As he spoke, Yi Yin waved the command flag and said, "All of you, come out." Damn it. Seeing Yi Yin waving the command flag, Yi Yu knew that Yi Yin still had some tricks up his sleeve. He said angrily, "I've never said that I'm not a Sword Cultivator. How can you take my words out of context?" Unfortunately, why would Yi Yin care about him? As the small flag was waved, roar. A series of sword cries came from the void. 2 swordsmen of 1st grade of Sword Transformation Realm and several experts of Heavenly Devil Sect revealed themselves. As soon as the 2 swordsmen appeared, they immediately cupped their hands and said, "Fellow swordsman Yi, I'm sorry. The command flag of Sword Cultivators is here. We have no choice but to obey the order." Seeing the 2 swordsmen and several experts of Heavenly Devil Sect surrounding them, Yi Yu panicked at first, but then he laughed and raised his hand to point at Yi Yin. "Vice Sect Leader Yi, I didn't expect you to use public office to avenge private wrongs. I really feel sorry for Heavenly Devil Sect. What secret order of the sect leader? Li Zongbao is just a golden core disciple of the Utopia faction. How could he be protected by sect leader Zhang? If you said that you pretended to kill me, then that's the truth. Since you're so insistent, then don't blame me. P.S. fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Chidian. Vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you to Alliance Leader Mei Xianjun for your reward. Thank you to fellow cultivators Ferlin Loster and others for your support. I wrote until 12:00 yesterday, so I'll add a chapter first. Chapter 50-65. Yi Yin was shocked when he heard that. He looked around in confusion. He had used up all his trump cards, and he was hiding in the dark. He didn't notice and didn't think that Yi Yu still had other tricks up his sleeve. Senior Lu. Yi Yu tidied up his sword attire and bowed respectfully to the sky. Now that things have come to this, I have no choice but to ask you to show up. Humph. A cold snort came from the sky where Yi Yu bowed. With this cold snort, tens of millions of sword intents surged out of nowhere. Each sword intent condensed into a beautiful plum blossom in the air. The plum blossom not only covered the surrounding area of 100 miles, but also controlled all the cultivators under the sword intent. Under the illumination of the sword intent, a female swordsman with a cold expression appeared. Wasn't that Lu Ruochang from the Black Phoenix Sword Sect? Qin Nongshue's expression was calm. Yi Yu had already revealed to her that there would definitely be senior swordsmen helping at the crucial moment. Hence, even when she saw Sun Luo betray her and Yi Yin appear, she was not too alarmed. But now, when she saw LV Ruochang, she could not help but panic. He didn't have time to glare at Yi Yu. He quickly bowed and said, "Disciple greets Grandmaster Lu." Lu Su's face was also pale. He bowed and said, "Disciple greets Grandmaster." The other sword cultivators didn't dare to neglect and bowed as well. As Qin Nongxue expected, Lu Ruochang didn't even look at him. Instead, her gaze fell on Yi Yu's face. She narrowed her eyes and said, "Yi Yu, you've hidden a lot of things from me." Yi Clan. What's going on? The Flying Dragon Sword sex matter isn't as simple as I thought. I'm already regretting it now. I shouldn't have let you fight in the sword battle. Senior, please no. Yi Yu didn't panic at all. He bowed and said, "Senior, what you know is the truth. I didn't hide anything. As for the Yi clan's matter, it's between me and Yi Yin. It's our Yi clan's matter. Senior, please don't take it to heart." Well said. Lu Ruochang nodded. If it's not my matter, then I won't care. Today, this sword has come to fulfill my promise to you. Tell me, what can this sword do, to satisfy you? LV Ruochang's appearance was too sudden, and Yi Yin was caught unprepared. He looked at the command flag in his hand, and then at LV Ruochang. He understood that LV Ruochang had already stepped into the boundary of the third grade of the sword transformation realm, and had long surpassed the range of the command flag in his hand. He was unable to use the agreement between sword cultivators and the heavenly demon sect to restrict her. Of course, he was even more clear in his heart that before LV Ruochang reached the third grade of the sword transformation realm, the so-called agreement was only meant to be torn apart. I'm afraid I'm doomed today. As Yi Yin thought to himself, his eyes darted around as he secretly thought of a way to escape. Night Rain laughed in her heart, but her face remained respectful. She smiled and said, "Senior, you worry too much. In the Great Sword Dao War years ago, you asked me to set up a formation so that I could show my face. That was a favor you gave me, so how could I not know? Although my Flying Dragon Sword sect has been destroyed, the ancestral teachings of protecting the Huan Kingdom are still there. I dare not forget them. Therefore, all these years, I have never dared to take your promise to heart. This time, I asked for your help only because I suddenly remembered that I wanted you to fulfill your promise as soon as possible. That's why I thought of this. I'm sure you can see that if Yi Yin hadn't appeared, you wouldn't have needed to do anything to fulfill your promise. However, the heavens are blind and let the deputy sect leader of the heavenly demon sect appear, making my efforts go down the drain. LV Ruochang was a little impatient. She waved her hand and said, "This has nothing to do with me. Tell me how you want me to fulfill my promise to you." "Senior, don't worry." Night Rain wasn't in a hurry. She still said unhurriedly, "I won't make things difficult for you, nor will I take Yi Yin's life. Senior only needs to capture Li Zongbao and hand him over to me. Furthermore, I promise you that I won't harm Li Zongbao's life. After 3 days, I will release Li Zongbao unharmed." "Oh." LV Ruochang was stunned and asked curiously, "Why are you looking for Li Zongbao?" Night Rain smiled and said, "I have some personal grievances that I want to ask Li Zongbao about. You made such a big fuss and bewitched Qin Nongxue, Lu Su, and Sun Luo, who didn't know anything before, just to ask Li Zongbao about something?" LV Ruochang asked with a smile. Night Rain shrugged and said, "I do want to ask about Li Zongbao. As for senior brother Qin and martial nephew Lu, they have their own plans." "All right." LV Ruochang sighed and nodded. "This isn't difficult. I thought you would ask me to kill them on the spot." I wouldn't dare." Night Rain smiled and said, "We are all sword cultivators of the Huan Kingdom. Why would I do such a thing? Even if it's the deputy sect leader of the Heavenly Demons sect who has a grudge with me, I wouldn't dare to hurt him. After all, he is backed by sect leader Zhang of the Heavenly Demons sect. If Senior LV hurts him, I won't be able to explain it to the Heavenly Demons sect." Senior LV. Hearing LV Ruochang's agreement, Yi Yin hurriedly bowed and said, "Senior, please reconsider this matter. Senior Li Zongbao is a cultivator at my sect leader wants to protect at all costs. Night Rain has always been a hypocrite. Who knows what he is thinking? If I hurt Senior Li and my sect leader blames me, I'm afraid I won't be able to explain it." "Humph." LV Ruochang snorted and said, "How you explain it has nothing to do with me. And I don't need to explain anything to Zhang Qingxiao. If he feels that I have offended him, he can come to the Black Phoenix Sword sect to find me. I'd like to see what kind of person Zhang Qingxiao is." With that, LV Ruochang raised his hand and grabbed. A large hand condensed from sword light appeared and grabbed down from the air. The large hand was hundreds of feet in size and immediately imprisoned the space where Li Zongbao and the others were. "Damn it." Yi Yin cursed and didn't dare to be negligent. He knew that he was no match for LV Ruochang, but he still moved his body and activated his scroll-shaped magic weapon to meet the attack. Li Zongbao roared, "You're just a third-grade sword transformation swordsman. Come, take my whip." With that, the shadow of the whip was like a mountain, meeting LV Ruochang's sword light hand. Boom! The sword light hand fell and crushed the shadow of the immortal slaying whip. Yi Yin's magic weapon was also hit until its brilliance was gone. LV Ruochang's surprised voice sounded, "Eh? Your cultivation method is a bit strange. No wonder Night Rain wants me to capture you." When Night Rain heard LV Ruochang expose his purpose, a trace of displeasure appeared on his face. Seeing that Li Zongbao was about to be captured by LV Ruochang's sword light hand, a voice as cold as ice but as loud as thunder sounded from the sky, "Whether Zhang Qingxiao has 3 heads and 6 arms or not, I don't know. But what this Xiao knows is that this Xiao and Zhang Qingxiao have the same thoughts. As long as I'm here, if anyone dares to touch a hair of senior brother Li Zongbao, I'll definitely take his life." "Who?" LV Ruochang was stunned and an extremely bad feeling arose in his heart. He hurriedly looked up at the sky and growled, "Who dares to play tricks in front of me? You're just a third-grade sword transformation swordsman and you dare to be arrogant in front of me?" Following this voice, a fist several times bigger than the sword light hand appeared out of thin air and smashed towards LV Ruochang. Ah! Seeing that this fist had completed the condensation of thunder and an aura that could destroy heaven and earth rushed out from this fist, LV Ruochang turned pale with fright. She hurriedly wanted to urge the sword origin, but under the thunder, everything was destroyed. Not to mention the sword origin, even the sword light hand was annihilated in an instant. LV Ruochang's body was unable to move under the confinement of the fist, and a sense of powerlessness arose spontaneously from LV Ruochang's heart. The fist was extremely fast, comparable to a white horse galloping across the gap. Without waiting for the sound to land, it had already smashed into LV Ruochang's body with a boom. Woo! The sharp sound of the wind suddenly rose, and LV Ruochang's body was ruthlessly smashed into the mountain peak, causing the entire mountain peak to shake violently. Everyone was stunned. Things had changed too quickly. In just a few words, LV Ruochang, who was comparable to the late nascent soul stage, was smashed into the mountain peak. Who could have such amazing strength? Who could it be? Everyone no longer cared about LV Ruochang, who was in the crack of the mountain peak, and turned to look at the origin of the thunder fist. They saw a thin and tall young cultivator wearing a Taoist robe flying over. On his face, with slanted phoenix eyes, there was a faint smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. An indescribable aura filled the entire sky. Although the young cultivator's figure was normal, in everyone's eyes, it was as big as heaven and earth. Of course, this feeling was only for a moment. When everyone's eyes moved, all the feelings disappeared, and they only saw a cultivator with an unknown cultivation level standing in front of them. Xiao. Xiao. Junior brother Xiao. Li Zongbao stuttered and called out. His mouth was dry and he didn't know what to say. Xiao. Taoist Xiao. Yi Yin was stunned at first and then said with ecstasy, "You are indeed in Million Mountain Meng." Xiao Hua. Yi Yu naturally remembered something from her distant memory, and her face instantly turned pale again. Guyu was also pleasantly surprised. She covered her small mouth with her hand and couldn't help but call out, "Senior." Senior Nameless. Everyone's expression was different. Xiao Hua's gaze swept across everyone's face and landed on Li Zongbao's face. He looked again and again and said in a low voice, "Senior brother Li, you are old." Xiao. Junior brother Xiao. Li Zongbao hesitated slightly, but when he heard Xiao Hua still call him senior brother, his heart warmed and his nose turned sour. He simply didn't think too much and called him junior brother. "Don't blame me, it's your rejuvenation pill that doesn't work." P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 5066. Ha. Xiao Hua looked at the tears in Li Zongbao's eyes and patted his shoulder with a smile. "Don't worry, I'll give you a rejuvenation pill this time. I guarantee that you'll stay young forever." Li Zongbao lowered his head slightly and wiped away his tears. Without raising his head, he said, "It's good that you're back. I don't need any pills." "Yes, we'll talk about this later." Xiao Hua didn't expose him and only nodded. "Wait for me to get rid of these people." Then, Xiao Hua turned to look at Yi Yin and said, "You're the deputy sect leader of the Heavenly Demon Sect?" Reporting to Taoist Xiao. Facing Xiao Hua, Yi Yin was as respectful as facing Zhang Qingxiao. He hurriedly bowed and said, "I'm not the deputy sect leader of the Heavenly Demon Sect. I'm only the deputy sect leader of the Tianfan sect." Speaking of this, Yi Yin lowered his voice and said, "My name is Yi Yin. Previously, haha, I remember." Xiao Hua also patted Yi Yin's shoulder and said, "You're that kid from the Tianzhu Peak. Later. I even saw you." This old man saw everything that happened just now. "You did very well." "Yes, yes." Hearing that Xiao Hua still remembered him and even patted his shoulder and praised him, Yi Yin was really happy. He hurriedly replied, "I dare not forget Taoist Zhao's saving grace. I would never dare to forget Lord Sect Master's teachings." "Oh? How did your sect leader teach you?" Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and asked curiously. "Cultivating the devil is also cultivating the human. If you can't even be a human, you're not qualified to cultivate the devil. Yi Yin replied respectfully. You're right. Xiao Hua chuckled and raised his head to look at Yi Yu and the others. Yi Yu was already panicking. However, facing Xiao Hua, he didn't dare to act rashly. He was definitely not a match for a cultivator who could easily injure LV Ruochang. He could only wait and see. Seeing Yi Yu's reaction, Qin Nongxue and Lu Su were even more panicked. Their eyes turned rapidly as they prepared to deal with it. Unfortunately, before Xiao Hua could open his mouth, there was a walala sound. Lu Ruochang actually flew out from the mountain rock again. Although LV Ruochang's sword equipment was damaged and the sword light around her was messy, there were still some traces of blood at the corner of her mouth. It was obvious that Xiao Hua was merciful and didn't really want to kill LV Ruochang. Lu Ruochang flew up and landed in front of Xiao Hua. She looked at Xiao Hua with a complicated gaze. She felt wronged and unconvinced, but in the end, she still bowed and said, "Junior greets Daoist Xiao." Although several hundred years had passed since the Sword Dao Great War, the influence of that Sword Dao Great War was truly great. The cultivation structure of Daybreak Continent had undergone a fundamental change because of that war. This change was not only because the sword cultivators of the Huan Kingdom occupied the Sentry City, but also because of the rise of the Heavenly Devil sect. Although the Heavenly Devil sect only existed for a few hundred years, it created a buffer between sword cultivators and Taoist cultivators. Therefore, the current Xiaoyu continent could be said to be a tripartite balance of power between sword cultivators, and the Heavenly Devil sect. LV Ruochang led the sword cultivators in the war. Although the sword cultivators won the final victory, there were too many secrets. The secret of Nameless and Horrible Phoenix was probably the most dazzling mystery among them. This secret was naturally not easy to analyze at that time. No one would associate it with Xiao Hua, who was only in the Foundation establishment realm. However, time was the primer to uncover all the mysteries. After Xiao Hua returned to the Xiaoyu continent for hundreds of years, all the secrets were revealed after Xiao Hua was expelled from the Thunder-controlling sect. When the Thunder-controlling sect became a topic of ridicule for sword cultivators in the Three Kingdoms, LV Ruochang also carefully studied and pondered over the whole process of the sword cultivators' formation. She knew most of Xiao Hua's whereabouts and secrets. In the end, LV Ruochang was shocked to find out that his biggest opponent in the war was actually Xiao Hua, the Foundation establishment realm cultivator who was hiding behind the scenes. After the end of the first stage of the Sword Dao War, in order to ensure the success of the second stage, the sword cultivators even sent a few second-grade sword transformation realm cultivators to ambush Xiao Hua and the others along with LV Ruochang at the edge of Millions Mountains, which was the left side of Drifting Cloud Lake. On that day, LV Ruochang witnessed the power of the soul falling lamp. After paying the price of a few second-grade sword transformation realm swordsmen, he had to return in defeat again. However, a few hundred years later, in almost the same place, with almost the same people, LV Ruochang met Xiao Hua again. This time, there was no soul falling lamp, no Elder Wu from Huda Stockade, no second-grade sword transformation realm cultivator, only LV Ruochang who had just stepped into the third-grade sword transformation realm, and only Xiao Hua's vast magical power. Night Rain couldn't see through Xiao Hua's strength, and LV Ruochang also couldn't see through Xiao Hua's strength. But LV Ruochang knew that when he faced Xiao Hua's punch, he was like a baby boy. With the strength of a third-grade sword transformation realm cultivator, he didn't have any ability to resist. Xiao Hua was definitely a Dao sect divine transformation realm cultivator. He had the strength to kill him with a flick of his finger. Since Xiao Hua didn't kill him, it meant that he was merciful. In the face of a divine transformation realm cultivator, even the sword master of Han country had to bow and salute. Although LV Ruochang felt wronged and unwilling, he still bowed and saluted. LV Ruochang. Xiao Hua looked at Night Rain and said faintly, "We meet again." Yes, this junior didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth and offended senior again. LV Ruochang bit his lips and replied in an unrespectful manner, "Please punish me, senior." Xiao Hua looked at LV Ruochang again. He was like a girl who wanted to compete with others, but in the end, he found that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't take advantage of others. Hee hee. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "This old man has been here for a long time. The reason why I didn't come down was because I wanted to see your final choice. But fortunately, your choice was reasonable, so this old man wasn't disappointed. So, you don't have to worry about your life. After all, you didn't hurt Li Zongbao at all." Hearing Xiao Hua's words, Night Rain and Qin Nongxue, who were relieved that LV Ruochang didn't die, were shocked again. They looked at each other and hurriedly knelt down in the air, saying anxiously, "Senior, please spare our lives. We were blinded by greed and wanted to seize Li Zongbao's spiritual weapon. Please give us a chance." Xiao Hua ignored the two of them and only looked at LV Ruochang with a smile. LV Ruochang frowned slightly and looked at Night Rain and Qin Nongxue with some disgust. He said neither arrogantly nor humbly, "This junior only owes Night Rain a favor because of the sword battle. This time, I came here to return the favor. If I can settle this favor without hurting anyone's life, this junior will definitely not hurt anyone's life. But what if he asks you to kill Li Zongbao?" Xiao Hua asked with interest, "Will you choose to do it?" "Yes." LV Ruochang answered honestly, "Since this junior has promised him, I will definitely do it. Li Zongbao is a Taoist cultivator, not a sword cultivator. Moreover, his cultivation method is strange and has great potential. This junior will definitely do it." "Humph, you are honest." Xiao Hua snorted and said, "If you really do it, you will definitely not have the chance to live in this world again." "Yes, this junior understands." LV Ruochang replied unwillingly, "But this is all hypothetical. This junior just wants to get Li Zongbao's cultivation method. I definitely don't intend to kill him." Night Rain seized the opportunity to shout, "Senior, please judge clearly. Junior brother Xiao." Li Zongbao, who was next to him, said, "We can't spare this guy. During the Great Sword Dao War, countless disciples of our Dao sect died under his soul array. Senior." Hearing Li Zongbao's words, Night Rain was relieved and shouted, "Senior, please judge clearly. At that time, sword cultivators and Taoists were enemies. It was natural for me to kill Taoist cultivators. Could it be that senior didn't kill my sword cultivator disciples? Moreover, this junior set up the soul array under senior LV's orders. This junior was just following orders." LV Ruochang's expression didn't change. She glanced at Night Rain indifferently. In her heart, she really despised this despicable person's actions. However, she didn't have any right to defend herself and could only listen to Xiao Hua's judgment. Fortunately, Xiao Hua glanced at Li Zongbao and said with a smile, "Senior brotherly, it has been more than 600 years since the sword battle, right?" "Yes." Li Zongbao didn't remember how many years had passed, but he still nodded and said, "More or less. Since it has already passed, then let it pass." Xiao Hua said, "There are many things that happen in this world every day. Some are right, some are wrong, and there are even some that we can't say is right or wrong. We should set our sights further." Li Zongbao naturally didn't have Xiao Hua's current vision. Although he didn't understand why Xiao Hua let Night Rain go, since Xiao Hua had spoken, he had no reason to refute. He glared at Night Rain and didn't say anything else. "Thank you for sparing my life, senior. Thank you for sparing my life." Night Rain was overjoyed and quickly kowtowed to express his gratitude. However, Xiao Hua's next words made him fall into an ice cellar again. "Night Rain, you shouldn't thank this old man. The sword battle involves sword cultivators and Taoism. This old man can't say anything about it. Similarly, the grudge between Yi clan is a personal grudge between you and Yi Yin. This old man can't interfere, damn it." When Night Rain heard this, he immediately understood. He cursed in his heart and immediately moved, turning into a black shadow and heading towards the direction of the millions of Meng mountains. Yi Yin was even more powerful than Yi Yu. He had already realized what was going on the moment Xiao Hua uttered his first two sentences. His hand was already gripping the command flag. He waited for Yi Yu to move before he waved the command flag and commanded, "Disciples of the heavenly demon sect, listen up. Surround and eliminate the soul cultivator spy." "Yes, sir." When the two experts of heavenly demon sect received the order, they moved and attacked Night Rain together with Yi Yin, Grandmaster Lu. Seeing Night Rain fleeing, Qin Nongxue and Lu Su knelt down in front of Lu Ruochang and begged, "We are sorry. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, give it a recommendation vote, collect it, and give it a tip. Once again, I would like to thank Lord Mei Xianjun and everyone's support. I am writing with all my might." Chapter 50-67. Humph. Lu Ruochang's face was as cold as frost. He snorted and said, "I can clearly see your ugliness. Not only did you covet other people's spiritual weapons, but you also faked the Sword Master's token. How can such a crime be forgiven? Why don't you commit suicide? Don't dirty my hands, tarnish the reputation of the Void Heaven Sword School, and ruin the reputation of sword cultivators." Clang. Before LV Ruochang finished his words, Qin Nongxue and Lu Su's bodies immediately glowed with sword light. They rushed in two different directions. How could such scum commit suicide? Ha! Xiao Hua patted Li Zongbao's shoulder with a smile and said, "In this case, Senior Brother Li, why don't you send them off on behalf of Lu Jianyu?" When Li Zongbao felt Xiao Hua's palm land on his shoulder, he immediately felt a wave of vital essence that was as faint as smoke, but also as vigorous as the waves of the sea. This vital essence rushed into his meridians, majestically flowing towards his arm that held the Kill Immortal Whip. "Good." Li Zongbao glared and shouted, "Where are you going?" "Take my whip." Li Zongbao roared angrily. The celestial slaying whip in his hands suddenly shone brightly. As Li Zongbao waved it, two whip shadows turned into the shape of horned dragons. They broke through the air and fell directly towards Qin Nongxue and Lu Su. Pa, pa. Two sounds came from two different places at the same time. Under the Kill Immortal Whip, the sword origin in Qin Nongxue's body was completely imprisoned. She couldn't activate her sword essence at all. A first-grade sword transformation realm swordsman, equivalent to an early-stage nascent soul realm master, was killed by Li Zongbao just like that. Even her primordial spirit didn't escape. Qin Nongxue was killed, let alone Lu Su. When Li Zongbao put away the Kill Immortal Whip, the corpses of the two people were still slowly falling from the sky to the cliff. At this time, Yi Yin also came back with Yi Yu in his hand. He said respectfully, "Senior, Yi Yu said that he has a secret about Xiao Mao to tell you. He also said that it involves the Yi family. Except for him, no one else knows about it, so I don't dare to make a decision. Senior, please punish me, the Yi family." Xiao Hua sneered and glanced at Yi Yu. "Yi Yu, you think too highly of yourself. Is there no one else in the entire Yi clan apart from you?" As he spoke, Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out the keepsake given to him by the Yi clan's ancestor, Yi Zhen. "Take a look at what this is." Ah. When Yi Yin saw the token, he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Yi Yu was restrained by Yi Yin and naturally couldn't speak. However, her face was filled with disbelief. Xiao Hua took the token and said, "If this old man wants to know Xiao Mao's secret, do I still need to ask you? Using other people's secrets in exchange for your own life. Night Rain, you've miscalculated." "Yes, this junior understands." Yi Yin became even more respectful towards Xiao Hua. As he spoke, he picked up Yi Yu and left. After a short while, Yi Yin returned with Yi Yu's soul nest in his hand. He asked Xiao Hua for instructions. Senior, this is Yi Yu's item. If Senior doesn't need it, I'll ask my disciples to return it to Mianshan. Yes, send him back. Xiao Hua was very satisfied with Yi Yin's handling. He smiled and said, just say that I want to kill Yi Yu. Elder Wu and Ji Man of Shibai village won't dare to say anything. Yi Yin didn't hesitate. He immediately ordered several disciples of Heavenly Demon's sect to take the soul nest and Yi Yu's corpse to Shibai village while he still stood respectfully at the side. Okay. Xiao Hua glanced at LV Ruochang and several sword practitioners of Huan Kingdom and said, this matter is over. You all can go back. However, I hope that you all can keep my appearance a secret for the time being. Yes, this junior understands. LV Ruochang and Sun Luo didn't dare to neglect. They bowed and flew away. LV Ruochang didn't even care about the corpses of Qin Nongxue and Lu Su. He was really afraid of dirtying his hands. After the sword practitioners flew away, Yi Yin was a little puzzled. He asked respectfully, Senior, the reason why this junior was sent to Huan Kingdom by Master is that, on the one hand, I want to build a good relationship with the sword practitioners of Huan Kingdom. On the other hand, I'm also under Master's secret order to find your trace near Mianshan. Now that you're back, can't I send a message to Master? Oh. How did Zhang Qingxiao know that I'm in Mianshan? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Yi Yin smiled and said, this junior doesn't know. However, what this junior knows is that more than 600 years ago, Senior was expelled from Imperial Thunder sect and then disappeared from Xiaoyu continent. No one knows whether you're dead or alive. When Master received the news, he immediately put aside all the sect's affairs and personally led us to follow the path that Thunder Meng Immortal took to find Senior. Wait. Xiao Hua was touched, but he frowned again. He raised his hand and said, Thunder Meng Immortal was chasing after me? What's going on? Tell me in detail. Yes. Yi Yin did not dare to be negligent and told him everything he knew about Heavenly Demon Sect. In the end, he said, my Lord Sect Master followed Thunder Meng Reverend's flight path all the way to QC. He even sent us to search for you in the vicinity for several months, but we couldn't find any trace of you. Just when we thought that Senior had fallen, Lord Sect Master suddenly thought of something and brought us back to Shi country. After that, Lord Sect Master went to another place, and when he came back, he sent his trusted disciples to explore different places. Coincidentally, this junior was in charge of the border of Huan country and Million Mountains. According to the sect master, Senior Li had come to the mysterious Million Meng Mountains with Senior Li, and after Senior Li returned from the Million Meng Mountains, he blocked the Imperial Thunder sect for 10 days and 10 nights. He felt that Senior Li might escape into the Million Meng Mountains. Blocked Imperial Thunder sect for 10 days and 10 nights? Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Li Zongbao and said with a smile, Senior Brother Li, you're quite capable. Aren't you afraid of being punished by Utopia faction? You're the biggest contributor to the Sword Dao battle. Li Zongbao smiled faintly. Imperial Thunder sect treated you like this, I'm not convinced. Senior Li was almost expelled from Utopia faction. Yi Yin hurriedly said, he was punished to practice in seclusion for 10 years. When Master heard about this, he immediately issued a death order. Whoever dares to touch Senior Li, Heavenly Demon sect will fight them to the death. Not even Utopia faction. Damn that Zhang Qingxiao. Xiao Hua's eyes were a little moist, and he whispered, I wanted to see how Heavenly Demon sect is doing now, but he's making things difficult for me with his loyalty. Yi Yin immediately understood Xiao Hua's meaning and hurriedly said with a smile, Senior, don't worry. I don't understand other people, but I know my master best. He can definitely pass your test. Alas, I'm not testing your master. Xiao Hua smiled. I want to see how Heavenly Demon sect is doing. I can't guarantee this. Yi Yin didn't hide it and said with a smile, after all, Heavenly Demon sect is developing too fast, and it's inevitable that good and bad people are mixed. But my master also racked his brains to restrain these disciples. His strength and energy are always limited. Xiao Hua understood and nodded. And among the disciples who joined Heavenly Demon sect, there are very few disciples like you, so it's inevitable that he'll make some mistakes. Yes, you're right, Senior. Yi Yin nodded. However, this doesn't affect the fact that Heavenly Demon sect has become the third most powerful force in Xiaoyu continent. That was in the past. Xiao Hua looked at the misty sky and said, soon, an even bigger force will be born on Xiaoyu continent, and I have to consider the relationship between this force and Heavenly Demon sect. Senior is talking about the Fortune Gate, right? Yi Yin realized and hurriedly answered, although the Fortune Gate has some reputation, it's still not big enough. Alright, let's not talk about this. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, saying, I really want to know, with your master's ability, how did he know? Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua suddenly slapped his forehead and said with a smile, I forgot. Since Senior Sister has Lu Er's life spirit tablet, he can naturally find out from Senior Sister that this old man is alive and well in this world. Xiao Hua's words were a little strange, but whether it was Li Zongbao, Yi Yin, or Gu Yu, all of them had smiles on their faces as they listened to Xiao Hua's words. That's right, where is your Lord sect head right now? After Xiao Hua finished speaking, he asked again. Yi Yin answered embarrassedly, this junior doesn't know. Unless master sends me a message asking to see me, this junior will not ask about master's news. All right. Xiao Hua nodded, I won't inform your master about my news for now, I'll go give him a surprise. If there's nothing else, you can go. Senior. Yi Yin was a little anxious, he hurriedly bowed and said, you cannot let Junior send a message, but you can't stop Junior from serving Senior. If Master knows that Senior has returned without a disciple serving Junior, and Junior left without permission, wouldn't he skin Junior alive? Xiao Hua smiled, that won't happen, I still have some things to do, it's inconvenient for you to be here. However, Xiao Hua's heart was moved as he said, how about this, I have some things to tell Senior brotherly, wait until I'm done, then I'll tell you. Yes, I'll follow Senior's instructions. Yi Yin was overjoyed and bowed respectfully. Xiao Hua turned his head and looked at Gu Yu with a smile, saying, you little girl, it's been a few hundred years, but you've actually cultivated to grade 3 illusory sword. Not simple. Gu Yu's face was incomparably bashful, she hurriedly bowed and said, greetings Senior, if Senior didn't enlighten Junior, Junior wouldn't have such achievements. However, Junior still felt that Junior had some achievements, but after seeing Senior, Junior feels that Junior's cultivation is like a tortoise crawling. Ha! Xiao Hua laughed, everyone's fate is different, you can't blindly compare. You're already very good. Finished speaking, Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out a flying sword from the space. He handed it over to Gu Yu and said, this sword was obtained by this old man from the sword tomb. Later on, there was a rare mutation. You can refine this sword into your life source flying sword. Compared to your current flying sword, it will be 10,000 times stronger. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, thank you for all forms of support. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.